Chapter 1338. Meanwhile, in the southernmost area of the half-god region. How impressive of the sun and moon sword god, sacrificing all of his cultivation to seal off my will. This time, the monarch ranking and the god ranking have found themselves a great deal. The imperious voice of the south heaven's spirit echoed between the heavens and earth. It had used 2/10 of its will not only to kill the sun and moon sword god, but also to investigate the person who had self-achieved the martial monarch realm, and eliminate all the pawns that the monarch ranking and god ranking had set up. Master, what should we do now? In front of the south heaven gate, a handsome young man with a blood-red mark on his forehead asked. The handsome young man was the current patriarch of the south heaven sacred ground, who was known as the four great martial gods along with the patriarch of the martial principal sect, the sacred leader of the Jade Lake sacred ground, and the master of the god-beast forbidden ground. Since 2/10 of my will has been sealed off, the monarch ranking and god ranking will lower their guard too, but the original plan is still in place. However, you must remember to send more people to keep an eye on the magical hair sword god. The sun and moon sword god has lost his cultivation, he won't let it go so easily. The South Heaven Gate said. What about the martial principal sect and the Jade Lake sacred ground? The young man frowned slightly. Tell them that even though the seal of the sun and moon sword god is powerful, it will only take him half a year to break free. That's not important. You must keep an eye on Xing Tianjing, Zhuang Cidao, and Su Qingning. After all, once they enter the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain, the outcome of the battle will still depend on the genius Emperor Wu. The tone of the South Heaven Gate's spirit was filled with a hint of sternness. Apart from killing the person who had self-achieved the martial monarch realm, its plan was to let Xing Tianjing and his crew comprehend the true essence of cultivation that the master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain had. Once they had comprehended it, they would be able to seal off the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain, thus eliminating any potential threats. Acknowledged. The handsome young man nodded. His figure turned into a blue ray and disappeared into the sky. In the rift in the half-god region, Puff, the magical hair sword god, who was wearing white clothes and staring at the pool of water, suddenly had a drastic change in expression. He opened his mouth and spat out 3 drops of golden blood. His extraordinary aura seemed to have suffered a frightening blow and became dispirited. What happened to you? The young man of the martial serendipity pavilion standing aside was stunned. This chapter is not finished, please turn the page. How did the magical hair sword god suffer such a heavy injury out of nowhere? It's fine. This is a hidden injury from the battle with the Southern Heaven Gate. I haven't fully recovered yet. The magical hair sword god shook his head, and his expression quickly became indifferent again. All right. The young man of the martial serendipity pavilion shrugged his shoulders. He could not help but ask as a sudden thought crossed his mind. The sun and moon sword god must be quite close to you. Aren't you angry to see him losing his cultivation? What is there to be angry about? Everything is for the sake of shattering the southern heavenly gate. The magical hair sword god said calmly. So, we'll just wait here? The young man of the martial serendipity pavilion shook his head and switched the topic. Of course not, there are some things we need to prepare in advance. If Qin Nan is able to break free from his predicament and achieve the martial monarch realm, when the time comes. A terrifying sword glow burst out of the magical hair sword god's body, shattering the rift into pieces. The great Tao in the surroundings began to tremble. Let's go. The magical hair sword god soon withdrew his aura and calmed down. With a flicker, he vanished into thin air. Semi-god region, at the foot of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. The martial monarchs, the genius Emperor Wu, and the rogue cultivators who had yet to enter the copper arch door stared blankly at the sun and moon realm in the sky that was emitting the glow of the sun and moon realm. None of them had expected the terrifying battle to come to an end so quickly. They also did not expect the Sun and Moon Sword God to execute such a terrifying move on his own, which even trapped the South Heaven Gate. Are we saved? We're saved. I'm not dead, I'm still alive. Blood Rune, Chelan Flame, Vast Sky Thunder, and the rest of the cultivators collected their thoughts. Their faces were filled with great joy. A few moments ago they had all fallen into despair. Senior Sun and Moon Sword God. Qin Nan's expression was blank. Did he see wrongly just now? Did the Sun and Moon Sword God sacrifice his cultivation to save them? Everyone. An indifferent voice rang out from the sky. The Sun and Moon Sword God walked out from the Sun and Moon realm with a calm expression. For the rest of the time I'll need, if I merge with the Sun and Moon realm, I won't be able to protect you. The other martial monarchs of the three great factions and the genius Emperor Wu will be here soon, so you should head to the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain at once. The Sun and Moon Sword God said calmly, as if nothing had happened. Acknowledged. Blood Rune, Chelan Flame, Vast Sky Thunder, and the others immediately unleashed their monarch auras and headed toward the Copper Arch door. They did not want to stay any longer. Senior. Qin Nan did not move. He could not help but speak. Qin Nan, it's true that my cultivation is gone. Before Qin Nan could finish, the Sun and Moon Sword God glanced at him and transmitted his voice. You! Even with Qin Nan's current state of mind, he could not help but tremble when he heard the words. The others might be clueless, but he clearly knew that the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain was only accessible in advance because the Anti-Heaven Alliance was here to help him achieve the martial monarch realm. If it weren't for him, why would the Sun and Moon Sword God risk his life and sacrifice his cultivation in the end? It was no ordinary cultivation, but the cultivation of the martial god realm. How many cultivators in the entire Kanglan continent could achieve the martial god realm? How many hardships would one have to go through in order to stand out among the countless geniuses and become a martial god? But now, because of him, his cultivation was gone. How painful would it be to go from a martial god standing at the peak of the Kanglan continent to an ordinary person in an instant? Qin Nan, don't overthink it. I'm only sacrificing my cultivation to shatter the South Heaven Gate. If it weren't for you achieving the martial monarch realm on your own, I would have done the same thing too. Besides, I can always cultivate again, even if I lose my cultivation. The Sun and Moon Sword God's gaze seemed to be able to see through Qin Nan's thoughts as he spoke. But Qin Nan was about to say something. No buts. If you're really grateful to me, you should achieve the martial monarch realm this time. As long as you succeed, even if I die, I can still smile in the underworld, the Sun and Moon Sword God said calmly. Saying this, he stared at Qin Nan for a while before turning around and heading toward the Sun and Moon realm. His long robe drifted in the wind. Perhaps it was because of the glow of the sun and the moon. The Sun and Moon Sword God's figure was extremely warm at that instant. Chapter 1339. Even if I die, I can still smile in the afterlife. Qin Nan stared at the Sun and Moon Sword God's warm figure as he disappeared into the Sun and Moon realm. His body remained still as if he had been petrified. However, the words kept repeating in his mind. Even though the words were ordinary, without any hint of emotion, they had touched a nameless spot in his heart. From the beginning until now, he was not the only one achieving the martial monarch realm on his own. The magical hair sword god, the martial serendipity pavilion, the copper mirror, his friends like Princess Miao Miao, Jiang Bailan, Tang Qinshan, his family, and the divine battle spirit were all helping him, accompanying him, waiting for him. Senior Sun and Moon Sword God, don't worry, I won't let you down this time. I'll trigger the tribulation at the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain, achieving the martial monarch realm on my own. After some time, Qin Nan finally collected his thoughts and took a deep breath. He stared at the sun and moon realm and bowed deeply. His face was filled with determination. The words were his promise to the sun and moon sword god, the magical hair sword god, the martial serendipity pavilion, the copper mirror, and the others. Humph. You're still putting on an act at a time like this, putting on an act. We're not allowed to do anything here, but once we enter the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain, we'll teach you a lesson when we have the chance. Blood Rune, Qilin Flame, Vast Sky Thunder, and the rest of the cultivators of the three ancient tribes wore disdainful looks when they saw Qin Nan bowing. They immediately flew toward the entrance. As for the other factions and cultivators, they were not familiar with Qin Nan, thus they did not pay any attention to him. They withdrew their thoughts and flew toward the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. Princess, why don't we go in together? Xiao Yunjue and Meng Longxie collected their thoughts at that instant. Their lips curled into faint grins. Qin Nan, are you all right? Unexpectedly, Princess Miao Miao acted as if she did not notice the two of them. Before they could finish speaking, she tiptoed and landed beside Qin Nan, her face full of concern. Even she had been frightened by the scene just now. She was not afraid of the martial god realm authorities and the South Heaven Gate, but she was worried that Qin Nan would lose his life in the terrifying battle. Could this person be the princess's younger brother? Xiao Yunjue and Meng Longxie were startled. They had never seen Princess Miao Miao with such an imperious aura like a peerless empress show such an expression. Furthermore, his opponent was only a martial ancestor realm ant. Qin Nan, at this time, Gong Yang and Tang Qingshan both flashed and landed beside him. Tang Qingshan is actually smiling? The astonishment in Meng Longxie's eyes thickened. As his nemesis, Meng Longxie was well aware of Tang Qingshan's personality. Even after acquiring the shocking succession, the guy was still expressionless, as if he had facial paralysis. But now, a mere martial ancestor was able to make Tang Qingshan grin? Even if the young man was Princess Miao Miao's younger brother, it was still impossible. Qin Nan? Could he be the fourth Qin Nan to surpass the rules of cultivation and possess 7 martial trees in the Middle Continent? Xiao Yunjue and Meng Longxie immediately recalled the young man's identity. After all, they had been keeping an eye on Qin Nan for a while when they first heard the news, but they soon lost interest when they learned that he had yet to achieve the martial monarch realm and was a 3-starred enemy of the South Heaven Gate. Princess, could this be the legendary Qin Nan? Why don't you introduce us? Xiao Yunjue and Meng Longxie were both extraordinary people. They immediately made up their minds. They went up to Qin Nan and the others and said with a smile. They were not interested in Qin Nan at all. Normally, they would not even bother to take a second look at him. However, Princess Miao Miao's attitude immediately alerted them. Qin Nan frowned slightly. He did not have a good impression of these two. I'm not familiar with you, so I don't want to repeat myself. Leave on your own. Otherwise, don't blame me for showing no mercy. Before Qin Nan could speak, Princess Miao Miao's expression instantly became cold and imperious. Cough cough, friend Qin Nan, I believe you know who we are. If there's a chance in the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain, we should discuss martial arts. Xiao Yunjue and Meng Longxie let out a cough and gave Qin Nan a thoughtful look, before they turned around and left. Qin Nan, these two are so annoying, always coming to visit the Lost Herb Garden. If you have the chance, help me teach them a lesson, Princess Miao Miao harumphed. Princess, I'm afraid the people of the 3 great factions will be here soon. Why don't we catch up inside the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain? Otherwise, it won't do Qin Nan any good. Gong Yang, who was standing at the side, reminded. Contact me with the badge. Tang Qingshan nodded slightly at Qin Nan before his figure disappeared. He had not said a single word since he saw Qin Nan. There was no need for them to talk anymore. It's just the 3 great factions, what's there to be afraid of? Forget it, I'm in a good mood today, so I won't bully them. Princess Meow Meow said calmly as she walked forward. You're right, Princess. Not only did Gong Yang not laugh, he nodded sternly. Senior Sun and Moon Sword God, I'll be leaving for now. Qin Nan glanced at the Sun and Moon realm and mumbled in his heart. He adjusted his thoughts and headed toward the entrance with the princess and Gong Yang. As he passed by the people of the God-Beast Forbidden Ground, his footsteps came to a stop before returning to normal. Everyone, listen up, enter the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain now. Xiao Yunjue watched as the three figures disappeared into the bronze arched door. The smile on his face slowly faded, replaced by an indifferent expression. Why didn't we greet him just then? Among the beasts, the nine-tailed monarch beast and Ao Tsangtian glanced at the Dragon Emperor in confusion. Didn't you see young master's gaze when he looked at Qin Nan? If we go there, who are we supposed to help if young master and Qin Nan get into a conflict? Are we going to hurt Qin Nan again? Let's not meet him before we make a decision. The Dragon Emperor wore a wry smile. Even though he was one of the top 10 Emperor Wu, his aura was slightly hunched at that instant. Time gradually passed. 100 breaths later. Apart from the three great factions, everyone had entered the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain through the entrance. Chapter 1340. So this is the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain? No, this should be the guiding lotus pond, just like the guiding dojo. Is that the ghost sobbing emperor butterfly? Weren't these exotic beasts extinct in the ancient times? Holy crap, the underworld emperor, 5 lightning centipede? The ageless vulture? And is that the legendary thought-transforming marquis? This. When Qin Nan and the others entered the entrance, they were teleported to an unfamiliar space by a powerful force. Before they could observe their surroundings, a series of astonished voices echoed in their ears. So many beasts. Qin Nan subconsciously glanced forward and immediately saw an ancient lotus pond covering an area with a circumference of over 10,000 li. The authorities of various factions, the genius Emperor Wu, and the rest of the rogue cultivators were gathered around the ancient lotus pond. As for the pond water, there were many demonic beasts among the flowers. Although these beasts were only martial ancestor or martial sacred realm, Qin Nan had never seen their species before. It seems like the rumors are true. The master of this Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain has a strange habit of keeping rare beasts in captivity. Oh my, if I knew, I would have brought a few of them here. Princess Meow Meow could not help but murmur. She would occasionally glance at Xiao Yunjue and the people of the God-Beast Forbidden Ground. Should she find a chance to suppress Xiao Yunjue and give him to the master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain after entering the inner part of the place? After all, Xiao Yunjue's bloodline was extremely rare too. That young man, could he be Qin Nan? Among the crowd, Wan Fenghun, Jiang Kongzhou, Li Qima, Wu Hong, and the others immediately noticed Qin Nan when Princess Meow Meow arrived. They did have some impression of Qin Nan. That guy, is he somehow related to Princess Meow Meow? Blood Rune, Qilin Flame, and Vast Sky Thunder were startled. Humph, they are just acquaintances at most. Blood Rune, Qilin Flame, and Vast Sky Thunder sneered again. In their opinion, Qin Nan had at most coincidentally befriended Princess Meow Meow before he became a martial emperor. If they wanted to kill Qin Nan, Princess Meow Meow would definitely not stop them. Welcome, fellow Taoists. Due to some special reasons, Master is unable to personally welcome all of you. Now I will do it on his behalf. At that instant, a loud roar could be heard coming from the distance. Following it, a middle-aged man wearing a beast robe with 2 scars on his forehead and a cultivation of the 5th-layer martial monarch realm landed in front of the ancient lotus pond. Isn't that the soul-devouring great emperor? He actually joined the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain? Many martial monarchs were startled when they saw the middle-aged man. A few thousand years ago, this soul-devouring great emperor was infamous for doing many heartless things. Later, the authorities of the three great factions had set out to hunt him down, thus he had disappeared without a trace. I believe many of you have already discovered my identity, but that's all in the past. I'm now an elder of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. Let's not waste any time. The Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain has been hidden for almost 3,000 years. The situation inside is no longer the same as before. Master has opened the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain to select a successor. As such, I'm here to show you the map of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain and the rules inside. The soul-devouring great emperor wore a smile. At that instant, even the peak martial monarchs raised their brows slightly. They initially thought the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain would be the same as the other forbidden ground. They only needed to overcome the obstacles to reach the deepest part. Now that the map had been revealed, there must be something else going on. This is the map of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. The ancient thought-transforming marquee is the current location of the skyless dojo and master. The soul-devouring martial monarch flicked his finger and summoned a giant map. The map was circular in shape, with densely packed paths and more than 300 dangerous places. As for the ancient thought-transforming marquee, he was at the center of the map. The skyless dojo, the martial monarchs, the genius Emperor Wu, and Qin Nan fixed their eyes on the ancient thought-transforming marquee. The skyless dojo was the target of the authorities, as well as Qin Nan's target. In this place, the rules of the monarch ranking, god ranking, and South Heaven Gate could not be applied. Qin Nan only needed to ascend to the dojo to trigger the tribulation and achieve the martial monarch realm. I'd like to remind everyone that apart from the place where the ancient thought manifestation marquee is, all the other paths and places of danger and treasure will change once every hour. Moreover, the changes are random. In simpler words, you might end up in a dangerous place after half an hour and be killed on the spot. You might also end up in a place filled with treasures and acquire an ancient succession. As for the deepest part, that will depend on your luck. The soul-devouring martial monarch's lips curled upward sinisterly. What? The cultivators at the scene, including the peak martial monarchs, were startled. In a place like the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain, even peak martial monarchs would die without a doubt if they entered the dangerous places. According to the rules, if they were to rely on their luck, didn't that mean every one of them had a chance of dying? Don't worry, our master will not allow such ridiculous rules. Therefore, before entering the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain, we'll be taking a trial. The trial is called the ranking. It consists of 3 upper grades and 6 lower grades, with the first grade being the highest. Those who achieve the first grade will only stumble into a dangerous place once when the map changes. Those who achieve the second grade will only stumble into a dangerous place twice. The number of times they stumble into a dangerous place will be calculated accordingly. Apart from that, those in the upper grades will not die. Those in the lower grades will receive some hints when they stumble into a deadly situation, giving them a 50% chance of surviving. The smile on the soul-devouring martial monarch's face grew wider, as his eyes flickered with a faint green glow. 3 upper grades and 6 lower grades? If that's the case, that's quite interesting. Even if you don't achieve the upper grades, and your cultivation is only in the martial ancestor realm, you still have a great chance of reaching the deepest part. Everyone at the scene was no ordinary cultivator. In just a few breaths' time, they had sorted out the changes brought about by the rules in their mind. There's one more thing. Master's selection of his successor is different from the selection of the other forbidden grounds. Chapter 1341. Several powerful auras appeared in the air. In just a few breaths' time, there were more than 100 of them, causing the welcoming lotus pond within 10,000 li to become restless. Countless ancient beasts trembled in fear and cried out softly. "This is—" The crowd was startled. They immediately glanced toward the figures and immediately realized that they were the cultivators of the South Heaven Sacred Ground, Martial Principle Sect, and Jade Lake Sacred Ground that had yet to arrive. Could that be Zhang Xianyun? Look over there, the man in the golden robe is Zhuang Qianjue, and the masked woman not far away, she must be Ji Qimei. What? All three of them are here? Many rogue cultivators were startled when they saw the three figures with formidable auras among the crowd of over 100 cultivators and discovered their identities. Zhang Xianyun, the second-ranked genius of the South Heaven Sacred Ground, ranked fourth on the Emperor Wu's genius ranking. Rumors said that he was only half a step away from surpassing the rules of cultivation. On top of that, Zhuang Qianjue and Ji Qimei were the second-ranked geniuses of the Martial Principle Sect and Jade Lake Sacred Ground, ranked 5th and 6th respectively on the Emperor Wu's genius ranking. In particular, Zhuang Qianjue was the younger brother of one of the top 3 geniuses, Zhuang Zidao. It was very likely that he would learn the power that Zhuang Zidao had surpassed the rules of cultivation. Compared to the 3, even Xiao Yunjue, Meng Longxie, Wan Fenghun, Zhan Bawang, and the others paled in comparison. Are they the ones who came? Xiao Yunjue, Meng Longxie, Wan Fenghun, Zhan Bawang, and the rest of the Emperor Wu slightly raised their brows. Instead of showing any sign of fear, they let out relieved sighs in their hearts. It was fine as long as Xing Tianjing and the other 2 monsters were not here. Even though Zhang Xianyun and his crew were extremely powerful and ranked higher than them, they had yet to surpass the rules of cultivation. It was hard to tell who would emerge victorious in a real battle. 4 peak martial monarchs, 8 ninth-layer martial monarchs, 63 martial monarchs, quite a number of experts from the 3 factions. In contrast, the leaders of the various factions paid less attention to Zhang Xianyun and the other 2. Most of their attention was focused on the experts from the 3 factions who had come this time. Xing Tianjing, you didn't come this time? Qin Nan withdrew his gaze and shook his head. There was a hint of disappointment in his eyes. He initially thought that the appearance of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain would attract the attention of Xing Tianjing and the others, allowing him to face the 3 great geniuses when he achieved the martial monarch realm. Did the South Heaven Sacred Ground only send these 2 old monsters this time? However, no one was aware of the presence of 2 martial ancestor realm cultivators in a corner. Their lips curled upward as they stared at the cultivators of the South Heaven Sacred Ground. Are you from the 3 great powers? Everything that I just said, I will now transmit to you through my divine will. Time is limited. Everyone, please don't reminisce about the past at this time. Let me finish. The smile on the soul-devouring martial monarch's face remained the same as he spoke. The noisy welcoming lotus pond instantly regained its calm. Everyone's attention was once again gathered on the soul-devouring Emperor. We were talking about the selection of the successor. Master is only going to choose one successor. Thus he has set up a different rule compared to the other factions. Master has left the dragon claws of the sky-severing dragon in the various danger zones, treasure grounds, and spaces. If anyone is able to find 330 sky-severing dragon claws and hand them to Master, they will be chosen as the successor immediately. The soul-devouring martial monarch spoke slowly. What? Chosen as the successor? The hearts of the rogue cultivators began to race after hearing the words. With such a rule, even with their cultivation and martial spirits, they had a great chance of becoming the successor of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. Besides, once you enter the Skyless Dojo, you will need to pay 30 sky-severing dragon claws to trigger the formation on it, which will attract the Skyless Force to help you achieve a breakthrough. The soul-devouring martial monarch added as a thought crossed his mind. Using the Skyless Dojo to cultivate in seclusion also requires 30 sky-severing dragon claws? If that's the case, every cultivator here will have to collect these sky-severing dragon claws. Many of the leaders of the major forces furrowed their brows. Back to the topic, the grade-determining trial will now begin. Who's going first? The soul-devouring martial monarch flipped his hand. An ancient red spear over 230 zhang long appeared in front of him. The tip of the spear was embedded with 9 transparent rhombus-shaped crystals. I'll go first. Following a roar, a third-layer martial monarch flew up to the spear and flicked his finger, firing a monarch glow with his cultivation will into the handle of the spear. Buzz. The ancient spear began to buzz vigorously, emitting a shocking glow. On the tip of the spear were 4 crystals emitting colorful glows. On the chest of the martial monarch were 3 words written with great force. Lower 4 grade. Only lower 4 grade? The eyes of the martial monarch immediately flickered with disappointment. If he did not manage to reach the top 3 grades, he would most likely die in here. I'll go first. Another martial monarch flew out from the crowd and began the trial. Lower 5 grade. Why is it only lower 6 grade? Haha, I've achieved the upper 3 grade. Following this, the cultivators and martial monarchs began to take part in the trials. The atmosphere of the guiding lotus pond became lively. As the trial continued, the crowd discovered that even those with a cultivation of the martial ancestor realm could achieve the upper 3 grade. In other words, the grade-determining trial had nothing to do with one's cultivation or talent. Upper 1st grade. After an unknown period of time, everyone's gazes focused on the participant of the test, Wan Fenghun. It was the first time someone had achieved the upper 1st grade. As expected of the genius Emperor Wu, who is ranked 9th, the young master of the dead spirit tribe. Even though the trial doesn't focus on one's strength and talent, he still managed to achieve the upper 1st grade. Many cultivators came back to their senses and couldn't help but sigh. Some distances would always exist, and they would never be able to cross them. If a mere Wan Fenghun can achieve the upper 1st grade, I'll surely achieve the upper 1st grade too. Chapter 1342. Upper 1st grade. As he thought, Zhan Baowang also achieved the upper 1st grade after taking the trial. Haha, since both of you have achieved the upper 1st grade, I'll try too. Blood Rune could not hold himself back any longer. He burst out laughing and flew forward with a strong aura. After he finished taking the trial, the situation immediately changed. Zhang Xianyun, Zhuang Qianjue, Ji Qimei, Meng Longxie, Xiao Yunjue, Wu Hong, and the rest of the geniuses Emperor Wu, who had yet to take part in the trial, took turns. Upper 1st grade. Still upper 1st grade. Si Zhaoxue achieved the upper 1st grade too. The rogue cultivators no longer exclaimed when they saw the results of the trials. Their hearts were completely numb. They could not help but admit that these young masters and successors of the Forbidden Grounds, even the weakest among them, were dragons and phoenixes among men. Even without comparing their cultivation and martial spirits, they were still incomparable to them. I'll take the trial. Qin Nan waited until Princess Miao Miao, Gong Yang, and the others finished their trials and achieved the upper 1st grade. He smiled and landed in front of the ancient spear with a kick. So this is Qin Nan who has surpassed the rules of cultivation? At that instant, apart from Xiao Yunjue, Meng Longxie, Blood Rune, the Dragon Emperor, and the rest of the authorities, even Zhang Xianyun, Zhuang Qianjue, and Ji Qimei, who had not been paying any attention to the other cultivators, raised their heads and watched with great interest. Unlike the others, they were quite interested in Qin Nan. After all, they had already begun to explore how to surpass the rules of cultivation. Qin Nan, huh? The one who achieved the martial monarch realm on his own? Little did anyone know, the 2 ancient authorities of the South Heaven Sacred Ground and the 2 mysterious martial ancestor cultivators in the corner frowned slightly. Even though in their eyes, it was impossible for this Qin Nan to be the one who had achieved the martial monarch realm on his own, they could not help but admit that as the fourth person to surpass the rules of cultivation, Qin Nan did have a certain chance. As long as there was such a possibility, they had to pay attention to it. They would rather kill by mistake than let it go. Qin Nan, you have to be mentally prepared for this assessment. At that moment, a voice exploded in Qin Nan's mind. The person who had transmitted the message was none other than the smiling soul erosion Emperor Lord. Be prepared? Qin Nan was slightly taken aback. According to Master's instructions, your results in this test will be extremely poor. Master told me to tell you that what you are going to do this time is too heaven-defying. There will be many unforeseen factors that will affect it. If you want to succeed, you have to start from the most difficult place and fight your way up step by step. Besides, Master asked me to remind you that the pawns of the Monarch ranking, God ranking, and South Heaven Gate have arrived. They are watching you closely, so you should be careful. The soul-devouring martial monarch continued to transmit his voice. His eyes flickered with great curiosity. He could not imagine what kind of heaven-defying feat a mere martial ancestor could achieve. Besides, even the monarch ranking, God ranking, and South Heaven Gate were watching him closely? The monarch ranking, South Heaven Gate, and God ranking are indeed extraordinary. I've already failed to achieve the martial monarch realm, and even faded away from everyone's sight, yet they are still cautious of me. Qin Nan could not help but exclaim upon hearing this. These terrifying existences were absolutely flawless. They would not let go of even the slightest possibility. Senior, I'll leave it to you then. Qin Nan shook his head. He did not overthink it. After transmitting his thought, he immediately raised his hand and unleashed a stream of cultivation will. He completely agreed with what the master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain had said. Only by fighting his way up step by step from the most difficult place would he be able to minimize the possibility of any unforeseen circumstances. It was the same as cultivation. The sturdier your foundation, the higher the chance of leveling up. In order to achieve heaven-defying feats, one had to endure the pain of defying the heavens. Previously, he had failed to achieve the martial monarch realm on his own. Apart from the lack of a grand occasion, the main reason was that he had the sun and moon sword gods help along the way, thus he did not encounter any setbacks. Buzz. At that instant, the ancient spear shuddered once again, as the rhombus-shaped crystals began to glow. It only stopped when the seventh crystal appeared. Lower 8th grade? At that instant, Zhang Xianyun, Zhuang Qianjue, Ji Qimei, Xiao Yunjue, Meng Longxie, Wan Fenghun, the geniuses, Emperor Wu, and the rest of the martial monarchs were dumbfounded. They could not believe their eyes. Up until now, there were only a few people who were ranked as lower 8 grades. There were less than 5 of them. Even though Qin Nan had yet to achieve the martial monarch realm, he had surpassed the rules of cultivation. He should at least be ranked in the upper 3 grades. Ha ha, this ranking trial doesn't care about martial spirit and cultivation. Even though Qin Nan's martial skill talent is outstanding, it's hard to tell how he's doing in other aspects. Blood Rune, Qilin Flame, and Vast Sky Thunder burst out laughing. Their gazes toward Qin Nan were filled with disdain. Only the lower 8 grades, the 2 ancient authorities of the South Heaven sacred ground and the 2 mysterious martial ancestor cultivators shook their heads and withdrew their gazes. Leaving aside whether Qin Nan was the one who had achieved the martial monarch realm on his own, it was almost impossible for Qin Nan to enter the inner region of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain and head to the Skyless Dojo. Lower 8 grades. Princess Miao Miao, Gong Yang, Dragon Emperor, Nine-Tailed Monarch Beast, and the others were startled. Most importantly, even if they wanted to help Qin Nan, it would be extremely difficult under the rules of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. Friend Qin Nan, don't be discouraged. The rules of the ranking trial don't mean everything. With your capabilities, you still have a great chance to enter the inner region of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. Fellow Taoist Xiao is right. Xiao Yunjue and Meng Longxie spoke as they approached Qin Nan. Even though they were overjoyed in their hearts, they did not show it on their faces. They did not believe that Qin Nan would be able to enter the inner region of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. They purposely said those words to warn Qin Nan not to back off, but to continue to enter the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain and die. Qin Nan. Princess Miao Miao glared at the two and was about to speak. Cultivator Xiao and Cultivator Meng are right. The ranking trial doesn't mean everything. I still have a great chance. Princess Gongyang, don't worry, I have my own plan. Qin Nan said calmly, as if he was completely unaware of the situation he was in. Keep the pendant well, don't try to force yourself when the time comes. Princess Miao Miao was going to advise against it, but she decided against it when she recalled Qin Nan's personality. She took out a pendant and handed it to Qin Nan sternly. Since Qin Nan had made up his mind, all she had to do was try her best to help Qin Nan. The pendant contains the presence of the life origin force? Xiao Yunjue and Meng Longxie's eyes widened. Princess Miao Miao was willing to give something so precious to Qin Nan. How much did she care about Qin Nan? What a surprise, Princess Miao Miao cares so much about you. Even if you're lucky enough to survive, don't blame us. Chapter 1343. In their hearts, they were determined to get their hands on Princess Miao Miao. Not only were they fond of Princess Miao Miao, but Princess Miao Miao's appearance, figure, etc. were impeccable, not to mention the formidable faction behind her. In some way, having Princess Miao Miao was equivalent to having the Lost Herb Garden. As such, they did not mind eliminating this Qin Nan right away. As for Qin Nan, he did not pay any attention to them. He was chatting with Princess Miao Miao and Gong Yang. It had been a long time since they last met. The trial soon came to an end. It took half an hour for the trial to come to an end. Among the cultivators, 173 were in the upper 3 grades, 1,226 were in the lower 6 grades, and only 12 of them were in the lower 8 grades, including Qin Nan. I forgot to mention, the sky-severing dragon claws are able to sense one another. In other words, after you've acquired your first sky-severing dragon claw, you'll be able to tell where the sky-severing dragon claws are, and how many sky-severing dragon claws your opponent has. Since the trial has come to an end, I'll now teleport you to the ancient lotus formation. As the soul-devouring martial monarch uttered the chant, the lotuses and leaves in the guiding lotus pond began to emit mystical glows as thousands of ancient formations were activated simultaneously. Buzz! At that instant, all the formations unleashed a tremendous amount of space force, which intertwined with one another and enveloped everyone at the scene, causing them to vanish from sight. Time gradually passed. 100 breaths later, in an unfamiliar space. Whoosh! Qin Nan's figure appeared and landed on the ground. Such a strong fiery aura, it seems like the first space I've entered is one of the 100 danger grounds. The thought crossed Qin Nan's mind. He raised his head and scanned his surroundings. The entire place was covered in the color of flames. The mountains and forests in the distance were burning fiercely like clusters of flames. Even from a distance, one could feel the scorching heat from the place. To become a successor, you need 330 sky-severing dragon claws. To activate the Skyless Dojo, you only need 30. Before entering the deepest part, I have to do my best to find 360 of them. Qin Nan thought to himself. Even though his goal was to achieve the martial monarch realm, if he had the chance, he could also become the successor of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain and master the true essence of cultivation. The space I'm currently in will change every half an hour. I have no idea how many times it will take me to reach the deepest part of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. According to the assessment of the 9 ranks, The only thing that can be confirmed is that at least 9 transformations are required. As he pondered, Qin Nan frowned slightly. In other words, it would be best if he could acquire 360 sky-severing dragon claws within the 9 spaces. After all, no one knew if they would enter the deepest part of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain during the 10th transformation. Let's get started. Qin Nan shook his head and stopped thinking about it. He activated his left eye of the divine god of battle and scanned his surroundings. Time was running out. He had to find at least 1 sky-severing dragon claw before the next transformation. Bang! However, as soon as Qin Nan took 100 steps forward, a tremendous force of flames suddenly gathered in the air, which transformed into a giant fiery hand grabbing downward. Break! Qin Nan's eyes glistened. His right arm exploded as he slashed forward, shattering the giant hand into pieces. The attack came out of nowhere. If my cultivation was only at the first layer martial monarch realm, I'm afraid I would be severely injured if I didn't react in time. Qin Nan mumbled to himself as his figure tensed. It was obvious that the danger in this place had only just begun. The danger ahead would only get worse. Are those the sky-severing dragon claws? And there are 3 of them? After taking a few thousand steps forward, Qin Nan saw 3 pitch-black beast claws with the height of a human, emitting an icy dragon intent deep inside a crack. It seems like I'm in luck this time. Qin Nan did not hesitate. With a kick, he went into the crack and grabbed at the 3 sky-severing dragon claws. However, when his fingers were only 5 inches away from the sky-severing dragon claws, a strong sense of danger exploded in his heart. Crap! Qin Nan backed off without hesitation. Roar! The 3 sky-severing dragon claws shattered as if they were aware of something, turning into 3 illusionary pitch-black dragons over 10 zhang long. They opened their bloody mouths and tore at Qin Nan. Piss off! After identifying the cultivation and auras of the 3 illusionary pitch-black dragons, Qin Nan pushed forward with a kick. He did not even execute any monarch art. He simply threw a few punches at the dragons, shattering them into pieces with brute force. His flesh was now comparable to the 4th layer martial monarch realm. Who would have thought that even the sky-severing dragon claws could be fake, to the point that even my left eye of the divine god of battle couldn't see through them? I should be more careful. Qin Nan was startled. He was quite lucky this time, as he had only stumbled into 3 pitch-black dragons with a cultivation of the 3rd layer martial monarch realm. If he had stumbled into a dragon with a cultivation of the 8th layer martial monarch realm, he would have been severely injured even if he managed to survive. There's a battle over there? Qin Nan raised his brows slightly. Through his left eye of the divine god of battle, he could see streams of flames and some other forces colliding with one another in the distance. Let's go and take a look. Qin Nan's figure flickered. A few thousand breaths later, he finally came to a stop in the air. In a mountain 10 li away, a 1st layer martial monarch and 3-peak martial progenitor realm cultivators were fighting against a giant golden-winged bird with a strength equivalent to the 1st layer martial monarch realm. There was a cave behind the giant eagle, and 2 sky-severing dragon claws were lying quietly in the depths of the cave. Cultivator, please lend us a hand. If you can kill the ancient golden eagle, we'll split the sky-severing dragon claws equally. The 1st layer martial monarch immediately noticed Qin Nan's presence. His eyes flickered as he yelled. That guy is only a peak martial ancestor realm cultivator. The other 3 martial ancestor realm cultivators were startled. Under such circumstances, it was unlikely that another martial ancestor realm cultivator would make any difference. Sure. Qin Nan's left eye flickered. He waved his hand and fired wisps of saber intents at the ancient golden eagle. Chapter 1344. Whoosh. A few breaths later, The ancient golden eagle uttered a cry into the sky and flapped its wings, producing a strong gust of wind. It turned into a blinding golden glow and disappeared into the rift. Obviously, it was not willing to fight any further. Qin Nan did not continue to chase after seeing this. His attack just now was to let the primordial golden eagle know the difficulty and retreat. After all, he was indebted to the master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. There was no reason for him to kill these ancient beasts. The three martial ancestor cultivators were stunned. Even the martial monarch was dumbfounded. He had initially asked Qin Nan to lend a hand so that Qin Nan could get himself killed and weaken the ancient golden eagle's strength. However, to his surprise, a mere martial ancestor had managed to scare the ancient golden eagle away. If I'm not mistaken, you must have some kind of powerful eye technique that can see through the ancient golden eagle's weaknesses, right? As a martial monarch, he was no ordinary cultivator. He soon collected his thoughts and realized the trick behind it. Indeed, I've scared the ancient golden eagle away and resolved the danger. I'll be taking one of the sky-severing dragon claws. Qin Nan nodded and reached out his hand to grab it. Ha ha ha, you're trying to take one of the sky-severing dragon claws? Are you really that dumb, or are you just pretending? In the martial world, the strong preys on the weak. As a martial monarch, these two sky-severing dragon claws are mine. A mere martial ancestor dares to compete with me? Piss off. The martial monarch burst out laughing. His eyes flickered as he turned hostile. A strong monarch aura burst out from his body as he fired an ancient monarch art in Qin Nan's direction, causing the woods nearby to tremble. Going back on your words? Qin Nan's expression turned cold as a terrifying aura was emitted from his body, causing the surrounding qi of the heavens and earth to become restless, as if a peerless ferocious beast had opened its bloody mouth. You're a martial monarch? Desolate spirit talisman, burn. The martial monarch was startled. Without hesitation, he crushed a rare talisman that was one of his trump cards. A mystical glow encapsulated his figure and teleported him into the rift. The young man's aura was several times stronger than his, equivalent to the third-layer martial monarch realm. If they fought, even if he didn't die, he would be seriously injured. His reaction is quite fast. Qin Nan shook his head. He withdrew his aura and grabbed one of the sky-severing dragon claws. Earlier, we were working together. You all also contributed. Thus, the remaining one is up to you all to distribute among yourselves. Qin Nan let out a faint smile as his figure disappeared with a flicker, leaving behind the three martial ancestor cultivators, who stood there in a daze. It took them a while to recover from the shock. In the void, an ancient golden condor was looking at a water screen. On the water screen, it was the scene of Qin Nan fighting with the great emperor and taking away a sky-severing dragon claw. How was it? At that instant, an ancient, imperious voice slowly appeared. Master, that kid didn't kill me, but purposely let me go. It means that he remembers your kindness, and doesn't want to destroy your precious treasure. Just a moment ago, there were two sky-severing dragon claws, but he only took one of them. It also means that he values his promise, and won't destroy it just because of his cultivation. I'm quite impressed by his character. The ancient golden condor slowly spoke. It did not forget to add in the end. Ha ha ha, it seems like the magical hair sword god and the martial serendipity pavilion were right. That kid is indeed loyal to his friends. However, it's also possible that he purposely did it because he knew it was only a test, so he decided to continue the test. No matter how smart a person is, it's impossible to hide their true nature. They will eventually reveal their true nature. The imperious voice continued to speak. In the air, Qin Nan's figure disappeared with a flicker like a ray of light. I've already flown 300 li away. The reaction of the sky-severing dragon claws is almost gone. It seems like its range is only around 300 li, Qin Nan mumbled to himself. Even though it was only a small detail, it was extremely useful in a crucial moment. Qin Nan, are you inside the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain now? Activate your monarch heart, I'll be able to sense your presence. Sigh, I still have to bring that idiot Sima Kong with me. I'm afraid it'll take him 2 incense sticks time to arrive. At that instant, a slightly depressed voice appeared in Qin Nan's mind, which turned out to be the dragon god's spirit, Small Worm. You can bring Sima Kong too? Qin Nan was slightly startled. It seemed like this small worm's capabilities were a lot stronger than he had imagined, being able to bring someone with him despite the distance. Qin Nan soon activated the monarch heart and continued to fly forward without hesitation. The journey took him a few thousand breaths' time. During this period, Qin Nan had sensed 3 cultivators through the sky-severing dragon claws, 2 martial monarchs and a martial ancestor, each of whom only had a single sky-severing dragon claw. However, since they did not attack him, he did not attack them either. Even though robbing them would allow him to accumulate the sky-severing dragon claws within a short period of time, Qin Nan would not take the initiative to do it for no good reason. Suddenly, Qin Nan's expression stiffened. The sky-severing dragon claws in his summer ring had reacted strongly. In addition to that, through his left eye of the divine god of battle, he could see 4 powerful forces colliding with one another in the distance. Only an 8th-layer martial monarch or above would be able to produce such an impact. Judging from the reaction of the sky-severing dragon claws, apart from the 4 forces, there should be more than 10 cultivators around. I should go and take a look. Qin Nan took a deep breath and concealed the aura in his body before slowly flying forward. With his current cultivation, he could even escape safely from an 8th-layer martial monarch. However, this was only the first space, thus Qin Nan did not want to expose his cultivation yet. Otherwise, the situation would be extremely unfavorable to him. A few hundred breaths later, Qin Nan came to a stop. A few dozen li in front of him was a huge valley. In the valley, 3 martial monarchs were emitting overwhelming monarch glows as they executed terrifying monarch arts while fighting against a 5-zhang tall ape covered in lightning. Chapter 1345. Among the 3 martial monarchs, 2 of them were martial monarchs of the Dead Spirit tribe, whose cultivation had reached the 8th-layer martial monarch realm, while the other one was a 7th-layer martial monarch realm martial monarch. As for the lightning ape, it was even more extraordinary, whose strength was equivalent to the 9th-layer martial monarch realm. In addition to that, Qin Nan also saw 4 5th-layer martial monarchs, 3 3rd-layer martial monarchs, and 6 2nd-layer and 1st-layer martial monarchs lying in wait, watching the battle taking place before them. Qin Nan glanced downward as he suddenly became aware of something. Deep inside the valley, there was a giant fissure, with purple thunderbolts with terrifying auras that resembled giant dragons. Under the thunderbolts floated various rare artifacts and sky-severing dragon claws. 37 sky-severing dragon claws? Qin Nan was astounded. No wonder the 3 martial monarchs were willing to team up against the lightning ape. 37 sky-severing dragon claws was already a huge number. It seems like the 13 martial monarchs nearby are waiting for the 3 martial monarchs and the lightning ape to suffer from serious injuries, so they can take a share of the loot. If that's the case, I won't leave for now. After all, in their eyes, my cultivation is only in the martial ancestor realm. They won't be too cautious around me. I'll make my move when I have the chance. Qin Nan pondered for a moment before making up his mind. He landed on an ancient tree. Bang bang bang! A series of deafening explosions took place. The 2 martial monarchs of the Dead Spirit tribe and the martial monarch of the Ocean tribe shifted their positions continuously, as if they were setting up some kind of formation to trap the lightning ape. Roar! The lightning ape showed no sign of being intimidated. It uttered a ferocious roar into the sky as its hair stood on end. The thunderbolts in the surroundings transformed into giant dragons, phoenixes, tautai, etc. It felt like hundreds of beasts had appeared at the same time. The battle was becoming more and more intense. Each collision was like a battle between the heavens and the earth, resulting in terrifying auras spreading in all directions, causing the chi of the heavens and earth within a radius of a few hundred miles to surge. 300 breaths, 500 breaths, 800 breaths, 1,400 breaths. Qin Nan watched the battle from the tree and murmured in his heart, "Here it comes." A while later, Qin Nan's eyes glittered. The eyes of the lightning ape emitted a crimson glow, as if it was executing a supreme martial art. Countless lightning bolts gathered around it, forming 3 enormous swords that pierced forward. The 3 martial monarchs were startled. They immediately performed hand seals to execute a terrifying forbidden art without hesitation. Bang! Qin Nan's Dao Monarchs, and the lightning ape, and the lightning ape Shuang, and the martial monarchs, and the monarchs lightning, monarchs, and monarch. In this battle, both sides suffered a huge blow. Martial monarch Luoyin, martial monarch Xuanxiu, martial monarch Juku, seniors, sorry for the offense. At that instant, a thunderous roar could be heard. The 4 fifth-layer martial monarchs and the 3 fourth-layer martial monarchs unleashed tremendous monarch glows as they stepped forward with extraordinary auras. The lightning ape screamed upon seeing this. Countless rays of lightning gathered on its back and transformed into wings as it flew into the rift. With so many martial monarchs here, it was no longer able to fight since it was already injured. Ha ha, sorry for the offense? Do you really think we don't know what you're planning? Even though we're injured, you're still no match against us. If you don't want to die, hand over the sky-severing dragon claw. Martial monarch Luoyin, martial monarch Xuanxiu, and martial monarch Juku burst out laughing instead of being enraged. The monarch glow on their bodies surged into the surroundings once again. Is that so? Let's see who's the mantis and who's the oriole then. The 4 fifth-layer martial monarchs and the 3 fourth-layer martial monarchs seemed to have expected this. Their expressions remained the same as they executed their monarch art. Seniors, sorry for the offense. As the 2 groups of martial monarchs fought one another, the remaining second-layer and first-layer martial monarchs could not wait any longer. They unleashed their martial spirits and executed their monarch art. The entire valley became chaotic at that instant. Every martial monarch was no ordinary cultivator, thus they had already considered the situation beforehand. As for who would have the last laugh and claim all the sky-severing dragon claws, it would depend on their trump cards. Here's my chance. A few hundred breaths later, Qin Nan's eyes flickered as he took out the treasure-fishing rod and swung it forward without hesitation. At that instant, the martial monarchs were startled when they sensed the energy being emitted by the treasure-fishing rod. A mere martial ancestor dared to interfere? In the nick of time, the force emitted by the treasure-fishing rod penetrated the purple lightning in the rift and dragged the 37 sky-severing dragon claws toward it. Did he just take the sky-severing dragon claws? The martial monarchs were astounded. The purple lightning in the rift was extremely powerful. Even a 6th-layer martial monarch would need more than 10 attacks to destroy it. How did a mere martial ancestor manage to penetrate the lightning and claim the sky-severing dragon claws? A mere ant dares to disrespect us. A 2nd-layer martial monarch who was closer to Qin Nan was the first to react. He dashed forward with an icy expression and slapped in Qin Nan's direction like a deity descending from the heavens. The slap was powerful enough to shatter everything within 5 li. I'm afraid that slap alone won't be able to hurt me. Qin Nan kicked the ground as the destruction will turned into a pair of wings on his back. With a flap, he sprang into the distance at a shocking speed, dodging the attack. What? The 2nd-layer martial monarch was stunned. He did not expect the mere martial ancestor realm ant to possess the speed of a third-layer martial monarch. Qin Nan. The other martial monarchs immediately recognized Qin Nan's identity. As such, they were relieved. It was not impossible for Qin Nan to surpass the rules of cultivation and possess the speed of a third-layer martial monarch. 10,000 illusionary sabers. Among the martial monarchs, a fourth-layer martial monarch performed a hand seal, summoning several giant sabers over 10 zhang long above Qin Nan with tremendous saber intents. Destruction Cauldron. Qin Nan uttered a roar as wisps of destruction will burst out from his body and formed a pitch-black cauldron blocking the attack. Bang bang bang! Following a series of rapid explosions, the pitch-black cauldron was shattered into pieces. Qin Nan's figure was knocked backward by an invisible force, with blood leaking out from his mouth. The attack had left him severely injured. You've only surpassed the rules of cultivation. You're not even a martial monarch yet you dare to steal food from the tiger's mouth. Die. Chapter 1346. Whoosh. The area within 10 li was dyed snowy white as a terrifying sword intent descended from the sky, as if it were the judgment of the heavens and earth. Everything within 10 li would be judged by the sword intent, deciding their life and death. From the first layer to the 10th layer martial monarch realm, each layer did not bring any significant changes to the cultivators, but the monarch force in their bodies would increase significantly. This martial monarch Luoyin had a cultivation of the 8th layer martial monarch realm, thus the monarch force in his body had accumulated to an incredible level. Even a casual slash from him was like a peerless killing intent. Sky desolating saber. At that instant, Qin Nan's figure tensed as his hair stood on end. The monarch heart in his body beat rapidly as 2 streams of terrifying cultivation wills were unleashed. The heaven-shattering saber in his hand began to vibrate vigorously. With a single thought, or even less than half a breath's time, he could execute his strongest move, the sky-desolating saber art, to tear a gap open in the sword intent and escape. However, he did not give the order, nor did he make his move. He continued to stare at the sword intently. He was taking a gamble. If he won, not only would he be able to retreat safely, his identity would not be exposed. If he lost, he would be severely injured or even crippled. Buzz. When the terrifying sword intent was only 300 zhang away from Qin Nan, which would devour the area within 10 li in half a breath's time, an unexpected change took place all of a sudden. The rift in the surroundings, the mountains, the woods, and the whole place began to tremble vigorously. This is Martial Monarch Xuanxiu, Martial Monarch Juku, and the others were startled. Crap! Martial Monarch Luoyin was startled. He was so focused on the battle and scheming against the martial monarchs that he had completely forgotten about an important rule. Space transformation. An ancient, imperious voice echoed between the heavens and earth. The sword intent that was about to slash downward, and the monarch arts that the cultivators had just executed in various spaces in the Tao origin heavenly mountain froze as if they were frozen. Following this, the entire place began to distort. Wisps of godly light descended upon the cultivators as if they had traveled across time and space. The light landed on the cultivators and turned into ancient teleportation formations. Great Emperor Luoyin, although I have yet to become a great emperor, what's wrong with snatching food from a tiger's mouth? Qin Nan looked straight ahead, his long robe fluttering in the wind. From the very beginning, he had been calculating the time, calculating how much time was left until the hour was up. When he made his move, there were only 2 breaths of time left before the hour was up. If he could hold on for a few breaths, he would be able to leave safely with the 37 sky-severing dragon claws without exposing his cultivation. Now, his gamble paid off. Even though it wasn't the 2 breaths of time he expected, it was just right. You! Blue veins popped out on martial monarch Luoyin's forehead. He was about to speak when the ancient formation under his feet and the formations on Qin Nan and the others were activated. Shwa shwa shwa. Everyone's silhouettes disappeared from where they stood. The fiery space was completely distorted and shifted to another location. A while later, in a space that felt like a world of ice. Why is it another dangerous place? Martial monarch Luoyin scanned his surroundings and frowned. Listen up, Qin Nan has stolen 37 sky-severing dragon claws. If any of you stumble into him, you must eliminate him and retrieve the claws. Martial monarch Luoyin took a deep breath and transmitted his voice to an ancient seal on his body. The ancient seal was a unique talent that only the people of the 8 ancient tribes were able to practice. Once their cultivation had reached the 5th layer martial monarch realm or above, they would be able to transmit their divine sense to the people of their tribe in a specific space. Normally, martial monarch Luoyin would not do such a thing, but this time, a mere Qin Nan had stolen the sky-severing dragon claws, and Qin Nan had even said those words before he left. There was no way he could withhold his anger. So what? Qin Nan, you better pray that you don't stumble into the people of our dead spirit tribe. Martial monarch Luoyin let out a hollow laugh as his figure vanished into thin air. In addition to that, in the other 2 spaces, martial monarch Xuanxiu and martial monarch Juku could not withhold their anger either. They transmitted their divine sense to the ancient seal too. Qin Nan's name immediately spread to the minds of the people of the Dead Spirit tribe and the Ocean tribe in various spaces. 100 breaths later, in an unfamiliar space. Following a whoosh, Qin Nan's figure fell from the sky. Qin Nan let out a relieved sigh as soon as he landed on the ground. Even though he had won the bet, the scene just then was too dangerous. If he had waited for another half a breath's time, he would have had to face the terrifying Slash head-on. I can't use the same method again. Qin Nan shook his head. After everyone had experienced the spatial transformation once, they would definitely take this rule seriously. If they used it again, it would be tantamount to sending themselves to their deaths. I still need 322 sky-severing dragon claws. I can't afford to waste any more time. After calming his thoughts, Qin Nan did not let his guard down as he raised his head. He saw wisps of Bodhi intent floating between the heavens and earth in the second space. The mountains and woods in the distance were emitting a faint glow, giving the place a peaceful feeling. A space filled with Bodhi intent? Does that mean this is a land of treasure? Qin Nan frowned and flew forward. Either way, he should take a look first. After flying a few tens of li, Qin Nan's eyes glittered. The reason being that he had sensed 4 cultivators within 300 li away, 2 martial monarchs and 2 martial progenitors, each with 6, 3, 2, and 1 sky-severing dragon claw respectively. In addition to that, the 4 cultivators were also using some kind of eye technique to observe him. I see, I almost forgot about that. Qin Nan's lips curled upward. He was only a martial ancestor, yet he had 38 sky-severing dragon claws. In this space, he was like a flame in the darkness, attracting everyone's attention. It seems like they are being cautious. Qin Nan waited for a while and shook his head when he saw that the 4 cultivators did not attack or leave. He continued to fly forward. This space does feel like a land of treasure. I've traveled a few hundred li, yet I haven't encountered any danger. Qin Nan observed his surroundings and murmured. As for the 4 tails that had been following closely behind him, he did not pay any attention to them. As long as no one above the 7th layer martial monarch realm was targeting him, he did not need to do anything. Howl, howl, howl. At that instant, a golden gust of wind came from the distance. The gust was not dangerous at all. Instead, it felt rather warm as it blew at Qin Nan. The Bodhi intent in this gust is stronger than the other Bodhi intent. I should follow it and take a look. Qin Nan's eyes flickered. Before he could make his move, a familiar yet unfamiliar voice suddenly appeared in his mind. Chapter 1347. The 4 words were extremely illusionary. They did not contain any hint of the power of the martial ancestor or the martial monarch realm, as if they had appeared out of nowhere in Qin Nan's mind. "Who are you?" Qin Nan was startled as he scanned his surroundings. The person was surely no ordinary cultivator to be able to do such a thing. "Haha, Qin Nan, it's really you. Give me a moment, I'll come and meet you now." The illusionary voice let out a loud laugh and spoke again. For some reason, the Buddhist wind that was blowing from afar became faster and faster. "Come and meet me?" Qin Nan squinted his eyes, but he did not move. Even though it was most likely a conspiracy, the voice did sound very familiar to him. It was definitely someone he knew. As such, he decided to stay and see who the person was. Meanwhile, 280 li away. "Fellow cultivator, in my opinion, this person is only a peak martial progenitor. There's nothing special about him. Why don't we work together and split the loot equally?" A martial monarch who had merged with the clouds glanced at Qin Nan and finally made up his mind. He transmitted his voice into the distance. "Sure." Not long after, the martial monarch replied with his voice too. Even though it was strange that the young man, a mere martial ancestor, had such a huge number of sky-severing dragon claws, 38 of them were too tempting. Even though it was risky, they were willing to take the risk. "The 2 of us will attack from his left and right and suppress him in one go. 3, 2, 1 move." The eyes of the martial monarch who had merged with the clouds flickered as he transmitted his voice. The martial monarch force in his body was rapidly unleashed. The martial monarch in the distance reacted the same way, waiting to make his move. However, before they could say the word, an unexpected change took place. The Bodhi wind blowing from the distance suddenly became extremely fierce. It swept across the entire place like a giant beast roaring into the sky. Wisps of magnificent Bodhi intents surged in the air and soon formed a 30-zhang tall golden figure not far away from Qin Nan. "Is that?" The 2 martial monarchs who were waiting to make their move were startled. Not only did they sense a Buddhist pressure that far exceeded their own from the golden figure, but they also sensed an extremely profound demonic aura within the figure's body. Everyone knew that Bodhi and demon were at odds with one another, but the golden figure had completely defied the common sense. Who exactly was this senior? Could it be that the senior had his eyes on the 38 sky-severing dragon claws too? As expected of an anomaly. In less than a year, the aura in his body has become so terrifying. Even now I still feel fear. The eyes of the golden figure were filled with countless runes. It exclaimed as it glanced at Qin Nan, as if it had seen something. There was not the slightest falsehood in his words. Back when he was in the Middle Continent, the person he was most impressed with was not Shi Qingfan, but Qin Nan. Even after coming to the half-god region, he still felt that even Xing Jingtian and the others were no match against Qin Nan. What rare existence? Fear? The 2 martial monarchs felt their scalps turning numb as their hearts were filled with a great chill. Even the golden figure was so respectful toward him, indicating that this young man was definitely not a martial progenitor, but a terrifying authority. They had even tried to rob the young man just a moment ago. That being said, both the golden figure and Qin Nan had no idea that the 2 martial monarchs were completely dumbfounded. "Your sage Chen Zilai?" Meanwhile, Qin Nan could not believe his eyes as he stared at the golden figure. The person before him was indeed Chen Zilai, who was ranked 3rd on the monarch ranking in the Middle Continent. However, the words he had just uttered, including his tone and choice of words, were completely different from the sage Chen Zilai, as if he was a completely different person. "You can't believe it, right? I'm sure you're aware of what happened during the monarch horoscope contest. After coming to the half-god region, I've been through a lot, which resulted in my current appearance. Of course, even though I'm no longer the sage Chen Zilai, I'm still the Chen Zilai you know." Chern Zilai took out a jar of precious wine and handed it to Qin Nan with a smile. It was his first time feeling joyful since he had arrived at the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. Qin Nan nodded and took a sip of the wine. He was aware that Chern Zilai had lost to sorceress Qian Qian in the Monarch Horoscope contest and had left the Middle Continent. By the way, why are you in the abstruse god space? Qin Nan pondered for a moment before changing the topic. His eyes flickered with curiosity. A few days ago, the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain had been missing. I guess it's fate. I stumbled into a rundown temple and smashed a few Bodhi statues, which I then repaired. Who would have thought such a trivial matter would allow me to pass the trial of the 100 Buddha martial monarch? Thus I made an exception and came to the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain to inherit the succession of one of the 12 Tianba hidden treasures. Chern Zilai explained. 12 Tianba hidden treasures? What's that? Qin Nan was startled. You don't know? I almost forgot. We're here to select the successor of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. There are some things that I won't tell you. There are hundreds of dangerous places and treasure grounds in the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. Among them, 12 of them are the strongest successions apart from the succession of the Master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain, which are also known as the 12 Tianba hidden treasures. On top of that, there are 36 Disha hidden treasures, but they are nowhere close to the 12 Tianba hidden treasures. Chern Zilai explained. I see. Qin Nan's eyes flickered. The moment Chern Zilai arrived, he had already noticed a strong Bodhi intent and a strong demonic intent coexisting in Chern Zilai's body. Even though Chern Zilai had yet to achieve the martial monarch realm, he could most likely face a first-layer martial monarch. Once they merged with one another, it would be even more terrifying. It seemed like the 12 Tianba hidden treasures were quite extraordinary, surpassing the rest of the successions. Qin Nan, I'm sorry, I've already taken the succession of the 100 Buddhas. However, these sky-severing dragon claws should be useful to you. Take them all. Chern Zilai suddenly recalled something. He flipped his hand, causing 31 sky-severing dragon claws to appear on his palm. He had explored many places in the 100 Buddhas space, thus he had found quite a number of dragon claws. No way, the Skyless Dojo is beneficial to you too. You should keep these dragon claws for yourself. Qin Nan rejected the offer without hesitation. He already had a good impression of Chern Zilai when they were in the Middle Continent, and he was quite impressed by Chern Zilai's personality. It was already a blessing to meet him again. How could he take away the other valuable things? Qin Nan, why are you being so courteous with me? I've yet to fully comprehend the succession of the 100 Buddhas. When I did, the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain would have already closed, thus I couldn't go to the Skyless Dojo. If you don't take them, I'll destroy them. Chern Zilai raised his hand without hesitation, unleashing a Bodhi glow. I'll take them then. I'll owe you a favor. Qin Nan wore a helpless expression seeing this, before he withdrew the sky-severing dragon claws. At the same time, his heart was filled with warmth. 31 sky-severing dragon claws were considered a valuable asset in the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. Qin Nan, did you meet the sorceress in the half-god region? Chern Zilai took a deep breath and asked. It was as if it had taken him a great effort to ask the question. Yes, in the wretched disaster forest. She even asked about you. It's obvious that she misses you a lot. Why didn't you look for her before? Qin Nan did not want to talk about it, but since Chern Zilai had brought it up, there was no reason for him to hide it from him. I did think about it, but as you know, the difference between the Kanglan continent and the martial monarch realm is too huge. I decided to wait until I've achieved it before meeting her. Chern Zilai's eyes flickered with determination. It was the same thought that had kept him going all the way until now, to embark on a brand new path. Chern Zilai, why aren't you coming back? If you stay away from your flesh for too long, your Bodhi demon intent will dissipate. At that instant, An imperious yet slightly weak voice exploded between the heavens and earth. "I'll be right back," Chen Zilai replied and glanced at Qin Nan. "Qin Nan, things are still the same now, but the people are no longer the same. It's rare for us to meet again. Perhaps we weren't that close in the past, but in the future, if you're in any trouble, just tell me and I'll come. By the way, I have a favor to ask. If Qianqian is in any danger, I hope you can lend her a hand. I'll be grateful." Chen Zilai bowed deeply toward Qin Nan after saying this, before his figure slowly disappeared. To him, as long as she was safe, no matter how difficult the situation was, he could still stand tall. "Sure." Qin Nan stared at the dissipating Bodian tent and nodded heavily. He had agreed to help Chen Zilai, not because of the sky-severing dragon claws, nor because of his friendship with Chen Zilai, but because Chen Zilai's attitude had touched his heart. He had no idea what it was before, but he was starting to understand it now. Perhaps this was love, giving up everything, even if the path ahead was an abyss. Princess Jiang Bailan. Qin Nan recalled Princess Miao Miao's mischievous smile, as well as the moment when Jiang Bailan turned into the Death Crystal during the Monarch Horoscope contest. "Forget it, I'll focus on looking for the sky-severing dragon claws." Qin Nan shook his head and disappeared into the distance with a kick. Perhaps it was because Chen Zilai had found all the sky-severing dragon claws nearby. Qin Nan had yet to find a single one even after half an hour had passed. Following the imperious words, the entire 100 Buddha's space began to twist once again, as Qin Nan and the rest of the cultivators vanished into thin air. 100 breaths later, in the third strange space. Such a strong murderous intent, it seems like this is a dangerous place. As soon as Qin Nan landed, he immediately sensed a strong murderous intent lingering in the surroundings, including the mountains and forests, causing his expression to tense slightly. The murderous intent here was a lot stronger than the fiery intent in the first space he had encountered. If his cultivation was not strong enough, he would most likely suffer from chi deviation right away. The sky-severing dragon claws are reacting? And judging from the reaction, there are quite a lot of cultivators nearby. Qin Nan glanced at the Summer ring and scanned his surroundings with his left eye. Crap. Following a glimpse, Qin Nan's expression changed instantly. Within 300 li of him were 3 figures who were using some kind of ancient secret technique to conceal their cultivation. They were flying toward him from 2 different directions like phantoms in the night. Chapter 1348. Qin Nan's flesh was currently comparable to the 4th layer martial monarch realm. With the 2 cultivation wills in his body, he was able to face an ordinary 7th layer martial monarch. In other words, if he were to fight with his full strength, he could barely hold his own against the formation before him. However, if he did that, the fact that he had achieved the martial monarch realm on his own would be exposed. He had yet to reach the deepest part of the place. If he were to be exposed in advance, it was hard to tell what kind of change it would bring. As for using the immortal alchemy art to disguise himself, it was meaningless. After all, it was very likely that the authorities above the 5th layer martial monarch realm would be able to see through his real identity. There's no need to fight now. I'll break through from here. Qin Nan immediately made up his mind. With a kick, he turned into a peerless saber glow and charged at the 4th layer martial monarch realm cultivator. He's taking the initiative to attack? The 2 7th layer martial monarchs were astounded. They did not expect the martial ancestor realm cultivator would dare to resist. Even though they were surprised, they quickly changed their direction. A few moments later, Qin Nan and the 4th layer martial monarch were only a few dozen li away from each other. They were stunned when they saw each other's faces. The man did not expect the person with 69 sky-severing dragon claws to be Qin Nan. Qin Nan did not expect the 4th layer martial monarch to be the young master of the dead spirit tribe, Wan Fenghun. Ha ha ha, I was wondering why a mere martial ancestor would have so many sky-severing dragon claws. It wouldn't be strange if it's you. Cut the crap, hand over the sky-severing dragon claws and submit to me, and I'll spare your life. Wan Fenghun burst out laughing as wisps of spirit aura burst out from his body. His eyes flickered with excitement. He was not interested in an ordinary martial ancestor realm cultivator, but he was quite interested in a martial ancestor realm cultivator who was able to defeat martial monarch Luoyin and had surpassed the rules of cultivation. Is that so? Qin Nan's expression didn't change as he executed the unstoppable step. His silhouette instantly transformed into a series of afterimages that permeated the space between heaven and earth. His speed was extremely fast and unpredictable, making it difficult for others to track his movements. As expected of someone who has surpassed the rules of cultivation. If you use some other means, I'm afraid you can still survive against ordinary fourth-layer martial monarch. Unfortunately, you met me, ancient wandering soul. Wan Fenghuan's hair danced wildly in the wind as he performed a hand seal. At that instant, the area within a few li was covered in darkness as an ancient spear that seemed to be made up of countless spirits appeared and stabbed forward with a tremendous murderous aura. Everyone knew that Wan Fenghun was ranked 9th on the Genius Martial Monarch's ranking. His cultivation was naturally incomparable to ordinary fourth-layer martial monarchs. The spear attack he fired was enough to seal the life of an ordinary martial monarch. Not good. Qin Nan was startled as if he had encountered a great danger. He had no time to dodge the attack. He could only raise his left and right arms in front of his chest in a panic. Don't worry, I'm still interested in you. I won't kill you straight away. I'll make you my battle servant instead. Wan Fenghun stepped forward with a sinister grin on his face. Everything was under his control. However, before he could finish, the grin on his face froze. Bang! Following a shocking explosion, countless wisps of phantom qi scattered in all directions. To everyone's surprise, Qin Nan's body did not fall to the ground. Instead, he borrowed the force of the impact to fly backward at a great speed. In the blink of an eye, he was already over 10 li away. He managed to block it? Wan Fenghun was stunned once again. How did a mere peak martial ancestor like Qin Nan manage to block it? Qin Nan, where do you think you're going? At that instant, two deafening voices could be heard. Two 7th-layer martial monarchs with blinding monarch glows walked out from the rift with calm looks in their eyes. The two martial monarchs were from the Dead Spirit tribe and the Ocean tribe respectively. How nice of you, Qin Nan, to purposely reveal your weakness so that I would lower my guard, and use the force of the impact to increase the distance between us. What a pity it was so close. Martial uncle, suppress him. Wan Fenghuan's eyes flickered coldly. A mere Qin Nan dared to trick him. He was going to teach him a lesson when the time came. Soul-connecting monarch fist. The 7th-layer martial monarch of the Dead Spirit tribe did not hesitate or show any mercy. He threw a punch forward, causing the rift to crumble as the terrifying fist intent poured down like an icy river from the 9 heavens. Even a 6th-layer martial monarch would be frozen by the punch. The martial monarchs of the 8 ancient tribes were stronger than ordinary martial monarchs. Do you really think you can suppress me? Pattern of martial gods and monarchs. Qin Nan uttered a roar as blinding glows burst out from his figure. Several magnificent figures rose from his back and floated in the air, emitting a magnificent aura. These figures were none other than the 5 martial gods and the martial monarchs that had strengthened his will at the wretched disaster forest. What's going on? Why is he being strengthened by so many martial monarchs? And the martial god realm authorities and the wills of 5 martial gods. Wan Fenghun and the 2 7th-layer martial monarchs were astounded. Destroy. With a thought, Qin Nan awakened the magnificent wills. He took a step forward and threw a punch forward. The tremendous fist intense immediately merged into a peerless sword and slashed at the fist intent of the martial monarch of the dead spirit tribe. Bang bang bang! The place shook vigorously. Even the fist intent of the seventh-layer martial monarch was blocked with brute force by so many wills. Whoosh! Qin Nan did not continue to fight after seeing this. With another thought, the wills turned into a pair of colorful giant wings on his back. The wings flapped vigorously, producing a strong gust of wind. He vanished into thin air within the blink of an eye. After all, no matter how powerful the martial gods and monarchs pattern was, its power would gradually decrease as it was used more often. Don't let him run away, let's go after him. Wan Fenghun snapped with a startled expression. If Qin Nan managed to escape, not only would he lose 69 sky-severing dragon claws, he would also lose his reputation as the young master of the dead spirit tribe. Whoosh! Whoosh! The two seventh-layer martial monarchs were unwilling to give up. They immediately took Wan Fenghuan's hand and executed an ancient secret technique, vanishing into thin air. At that instant, a great chase took place in the space filled with murderous intent. Qin Nan was relying on the power of the left eye of the divine god of battle and the martial gods and monarchs pattern, allowing him to move at a terrifying speed. On top of that, he was able to weave in and out of the traps, preventing the others from tracking his movements. However, the two seventh-layer martial monarchs teaming up and Wan Fenghuan's moves were quite outstanding. Even though they were unable to catch up to him, they were still following him closely like maggots attached to his bones. This won't do at this rate, they will surely catch up to me. They might even attract the attention of the other martial monarchs. I have to think of a way at once, Qin Nan murmured. He activated his left eye of the divine god of battle and scanned his surroundings. It was unlikely that he could shake them off with some trick. The only way out was to rely on the secrets of the space filled with murderous intent. A few hundred breaths later, Qin Nan's eyes flickered. Not far ahead of him, several mountains rose from the ground and clustered together, forming an ocean of mountains. Even with his left eye of the divine god of battle, he was unable to see the end of it. In addition to that, each of the mountains was brimming with murderous intent, which almost materialized. The deeper part of the mountains was even more mysterious. Even the left eye of the divine god of battle was unable to peek into it. Let's go inside. Qin Nan did not hesitate. He flew straight into the mountains, trying to get rid of us by entering a dangerous place. Qin Nan, how naive of you! Wan Fenghun and the two martial monarchs behind him wore cold grins as they followed closely behind. The spirits of the heavens and earth are everywhere. The murderous intent is everywhere. As water, not a single drop of water will leak out. Not long after Qin Nan entered the mountains, Wan Fenghun and the martial monarch of the ocean tribe performed hand seals. At that instant, wisps of icy auras burst out from the ground among the ancient trees, which transformed into murderous generals that attacked Qin Nan from all directions. In addition, layers of water vapor rose from the trees, flowers, soil and rivers within a 100-mile radius, causing the entire area to become foggy in an instant. Countless murderous intents continuously erupted from the depths of the white fog. Will of destruction. Qin Nan's expression froze. He unleashed the will of destruction and merged it with the martial gods and martial monarchs pattern, causing the monarch intents and god intents to darken. Every time the pair of wings beat, not only would it produce a gust of wind, it would also shatter the murderous intents. Who would have thought that the people of the Dead Spirit tribe and the Ocean tribe would be able to unleash their full potential after entering a dangerous place? This is going to be troublesome. Qin Nan frowned slightly. Is someone watching us? Qin Nan's expression changed all of a sudden as he raised his head. In addition to him, Wan Fenghun and the other two martial monarchs reacted the same way too. Just a moment ago, they all felt like a pair of invisible eyes were locking onto them from high up in the sky. There's no one nearby, and the sky-severing dragon claws aren't showing any reaction either. In other words, someone must have used some kind of artifact to observe everything within a certain distance. The thought crossed Qin Nan's mind. He immediately flew in the other direction without hesitation. Whoosh! At that instant, an unexpected change took place. Crimson rays suddenly burst out from high up in the sky, which turned into giant, blood-colored swords that poured down at Qin Nan's figure like a storm. The attacks were not from a cultivator, but the artifact that was spying on them. The eyes of Wan Fenghun and the other two martial monarchs flickered. Ha ha ha, Qin Nan, who would have thought such a day would come for you? Cultivator Wan Fenghun, why don't we team up and kill him together? A loud, excited laugh burst out from the sky. Chapter 1349. Are you Blood Rune? But even if you are, I don't think you have the right to claim 30% on your own, right? Wan Fenghun squinted. Since I've said 30%, I do have the right to claim it. However, don't tell anyone about it. Blood weapon, sacrifice to me. Blood Rune's voice appeared once again. Following this, countless droplets of blood appeared in the air. Each droplet of blood burned continuously and transformed into a mystical crimson glow. They gathered together and formed an ancient crimson formation. Whoosh! The formation was activated, causing the rift to tremble as three figures walked out from it. The one leading the three figures was Blood Rune, while the other two were sixth-layer martial monarchs of the Blood Tribe. Such a lineup was no longer comparable to Wan Fenghun and his crew. They were only slightly inferior. Very well, let's attack together. Wan Fenghun nodded in agreement without hesitation. After all, the space would change every half an hour. He did not want to see Qin Nan leave before he could defeat Qin Nan. Qin Nan, weren't you scornful in the Anti-Heaven Alliance? I'd like to see if you can still be so smug this time. Blood Rune wore a hideous grin. He and the other two martial monarchs immediately executed an ancient forbidden art, which dyed the sky red. A magnificent, ancient, blood-red figure descended from the sky and charged at Qin Nan. They had long hated Qin Nan to the core, thus they immediately executed their strongest move. Let's surround him. Wan Fenghun and the two seventh-layer martial monarchs took hold of the opportunity and spread out, executing powerful monarch arts simultaneously. It felt like they were summoning an army of 1,000,000 soldiers that were going to crush everything in front of them. I'm really unlucky this time, stumbling into Blood Rune and his crew at this time. It's up to the heavens whether I should expose my cultivation or not. Qin Nan's expression darkened. Now that he was facing such a lineup, even if he exposed his true cultivation, it would be very difficult for him to escape successfully. In the nick of time, Qin Nan directed the will of the martial gods and monarchs patterns onto his heaven-shattering saber without hesitation. It instantly turned into a blinding glow that penetrated the murderous intent of the blood progenitor's figure. Unstoppable step. Heavenly feather transformation technique. Qin Nan continued to execute his attacks, using the will of the martial gods and monarchs pattern to execute the two arts simultaneously, which further boosted his speed. He disappeared into the depths of the mountains like a flash of light. You still want to escape? Let's see how long you can last with this kind of speed. Wan Fenghun and Blood Rune chuckled coldly. Together with the other four martial monarchs, they turned into two deadly auras and chased after Qin Nan from both sides. Apart from monarch arts, they also executed other moves during the chase. Bang bang bang! At this moment, a series of deafening explosions resounded across the clouds. Everywhere they passed, a bottomless pit would appear. Many ancient trees, rocks, etc. were also destroyed into nothingness. A battle between martial monarchs was like a prehistoric beast on the move. It would destroy almost everything it encountered, not to mention the fact that they were being chased by such a lineup. Time gradually passed. 1,000 breaths later. Even though Qin Nan was still weaving through the mountains ahead, his body was already covered in tiny wounds. His hair was slightly disheveled. The glow of the martial gods and monarchs' pattern had dimmed too. The most terrifying thing about Wan Fenghun and Blood Rune teaming up was not their cultivation, but the incredible effect of their moves when combined, making it impossible to defend against them. At this rate, it's only a matter of time until I'm caught. If that's the case, Wan Fenghun, Blood Rune, show me what you've got. Qin Nan took a deep breath. His eyes flickered with determination. At this point, even if it would bring him endless danger, he had no choice but to expose his cultivation. Qin Nan was startled all of a sudden. In addition to him, Wan Fenghun, Xuesha, and the rest of the martial monarchs reacted the same way too. It was as if they had triggered some kind of ancient forbidding aura. The scenery in front of them completely changed, turning into a giant valley filled with bones and a deathly aura. In the White Bone Valley, there were several terrifying forbidding auras hidden deep within the ground, like peerless beasts observing everything in the dark. Even Qin Nan, Wan Fenghun, Xuesha, and the others felt a chill running down their spines. Why would we suddenly enter the Valley of Bones? Could it be that in the process of this pursuit, we must not enter the depths of this group of mountains? Qin Nan soon calmed his thoughts. He remembered that when he first entered the mountains, he had discovered a force deep inside the mountains that even his left eye of the divine god of battle was unable to peek through. Bang! At that instant, a huge explosion took place, as two figures with magnificent auras sprang into the sky from the pile of skeletons. Countless saber intents were emitted, as a series of shocking battles took place. Senior brothers? Are they Tang Qingshan and Meng Longxie? Qin Nan, Wan Fenghun, Blood Rune, and the rest of the martial monarchs were astounded. None of them had expected to encounter these two geniuses in this land of bones that they had suddenly entered. Could this be one of the 12 Tianba hidden treasures? Qin Nan's eyes flickered as a thought crossed his mind. The space they were currently in was a space filled with murderous intent. It was highly possible that the owner of the space had mastered some kind of murderous intent. It was not a coincidence that both Tang Qingshan and Meng Longxie, the successors of the godly exterminator Forbidden Ground, were here at the same time. The owner of the space was trying to test them to pick his successor. Meng Longxie and Tang Qingshan soon noticed Qin Nan and the others who had suddenly barged in. Meng Longxie did not react too much. He was currently in the Land of Bones, protected by the murderous intent left by the senior. Apart from Tang Qingshan, no one would be able to harm him. On the other hand, Tang Qingshan's eyes widened as his expression turned icy. How bold of the Dead Spirit Tribe and the Blood Tribe to team up and hunt down my junior brother! Die, all of you! Chapter 1350. Senior brother, don't worry about it, I can handle it. Qin Nan rejected the offer without hesitation. The 12 Tianba hidden treasures were not to be underestimated. It would greatly benefit his cultivation if he could acquire them. He did not want Tang Qingshan to miss out on the precious succession because of him. Tsk, Tang Qingshan, so Qin Nan is your junior brother. However, you're still thinking of saving the others when you're fighting against me? You should save yourself first. Meng Longxie was in a great mood. The sword and tents in his hands skyrocketed and stacked together, shrouding the heavens and earth. He had long wanted Qin Nan dead, thus he would not let Tang Qingshan stop Wan Fenghun and the others. Meng Longxie, you're not qualified to stop me. The black saber in Tang Qingshan's hand began to buzz as wisps of blood-red saber intents burst out from it, suppressing the layers of sword intents. Even though his ranking on the Genius Emperor Wu ranking was lower than Meng Longxie's, he had recently had a breakthrough, thus his cultivation was no longer the same as before. Tang Qingshan, do you think I don't know how much your cultivation has improved? Humph, in order to kill you in the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain, I've spent half a month preparing a move just for you. Meng Longxie's expression did not change in the slightest. Instead, he let out a cold laugh and formed a hand seal. Then, 3 ancient swords soared into the sky from his back. Furthermore, behind each of the ancient swords floated an illusory figure. You! Tang Qingshan's expression froze as his figure began to tremble. What's going on? Even Qin Nan was startled. The reason being that these 3 figures were none other than the Duanmu Mountain Lord, Peak Leader Zhang, and Peak Leader Luo of the Qinglong Sacred Area, who were Tang Qingshan and Qin Nan's senior brothers. Later on, when Tang Qingshan was undergoing his tribulation, the Duanmu Mountain Lord and the other 2 had sacrificed their cultivation to help Tang Qingshan withstand the Thunder Tribulation. Ha ha ha, Tang Qingshan, oh Tang Qingshan, you didn't expect this, did you? I purposely paid a visit to the lower district and collected the artifacts that they had once used. I extracted their auras and refined them into 3 ancient swords. Although these 3 ancient swords aren't strong, they will be able to suppress your murderous intent. Meng Longxie burst out laughing as his figure flickered rapidly in the air. The 3 ancient swords on his back slashed forward, causing the formidable saber intent and murderous intent on Tang Qingshan's figure to drop rapidly. Tang Qingshan had practiced the right scripture of the godly exterminator, while Meng Longxie had practiced the left scripture of the godly exterminator. The method was derived from the left scripture of the godly exterminator, which was to refine the aura or flesh of the person most important to the enemy into an artifact to suppress the enemy. Qin Nan, hold them off for now. I'll lend you a hand once I've killed this asshole. Tang Qingshan's expression became incredibly dark as he continued to slash forward with the black saber in his hand. He had once been Meng Longxie's nemesis, mainly because they were competitors, thus he was not fond of Meng Longxie. However, Meng Longxie had now crossed the line in his heart. Bang bang bang! An intense battle took place between the 2. However, the 3 ancient swords were like 3 giant mountains. No matter how extraordinary Tang Qingshan was, he was still completely suppressed by them. He had no chance to fight back at all, and the situation had become extremely dangerous. This Meng Longxie is too shameless. Qin Nan's gaze turned icy too. Back when he was at the Qinglong Sacred Area, the Duanmu Mountain Lord and his crew had helped him many times. Qin Nan die. At that instant, Wan Fenghun, Blood Rune, and the others collected their thoughts. Their figures turned into rays of light that flashed across the land of white bones. Various monarch arts intertwined above Qin Nan's head. Will of destruction. Qin Nan merged streams of the will of destruction with the will of the martial gods and monarchs pattern, turning them into shocking attacks that shattered the monarch arts one after another. Senior brother's side is in great danger. If this continues, not only will he fail to acquire the succession, he might even suffer serious injuries or die. As for me, even if I expose my cultivation, I'm afraid I won't be able to help him. Qin Nan's brain rapidly thought. He had to come up with a perfect solution to resolve the crisis. I've got it. Qin Nan glanced at the crack on the land of white bones that was emitting a dangerous aura. An idea immediately crossed his mind as he came up with a plan. Even though the plan was extremely dangerous, if it worked, not only would he not have to expose his cultivation to Wan Fenghun and the others, he would also be able to help Tang Qingshan defeat Meng Longxie. It's a bet. Qin Nan did not hesitate. With a thought, the will of the martial gods and monarchs pattern turned into rays of light that landed above Tang Qingshan's head like a heavenly river. Tang Qingshan's aura skyrocketed. This is Tang Qingshan and Meng Longxie were startled. Wan Fenghun, Blood Rune, and the others reacted the same way. Qin Nan, what are you doing? Withdraw it at once. Tang Qingshan's expression changed tremendously as he realized something. How was Qin Nan going to stand a chance against these powerful enemies, if he gave him the will? Ha ha ha, Qin Nan, how loyal of you to give all the will to Tang Qingshan under such circumstances. I would like to see how you're going to escape, and how you're going to survive the attack. Wan Fenghun, Blood Rune, and the others swiftly collected their thoughts. They burst out laughing and performed hand seals, executing 6 peerless monarch arts at the same time, firing at Qin Nan like ancient dragons. The land of white bones in all directions shuddered. Even a 6th-layer martial monarch would be crippled by the attack, let alone Qin Nan. Qin Nan let out a roar as if he had merged with the heaven-shattering saber into one, turning into a tremendous saber glow that slashed forward. Even though the saber glow was incredibly powerful, its strength was only equivalent to the strength of a 2nd-layer martial monarch. It was minuscule compared to the 6 peerless monarch art. From afar, it looked like an ordinary person picking up a long saber and slashing at a giant over a few thousand zhang tall like a mountain. Bang! In the blink of an eye, a terrifying explosion took place on the white bone ground. Countless rays of black light and blood light, like a huge mushroom cloud, surged up. The incomparably tyrannical strength qi, like a long dragon whip, lashed out in all directions, striking out a series of shockingly huge ravines. Chapter 1351. Qin Nan. Tang Qingshan shuddered as his murderous aura became chaotic. At that instant, it felt like all the sounds in his ears had disappeared. The entire land of white bones fell into a dead silence. Qin Nan was currently the only person close to him that was still alive in the Kanglan continent. But now, he was looking on helplessly as that person died right before his eyes. He's dead? Meng Longxie was overjoyed. He's willing to do such a thing just for the sake of his brother. Qin Nan, I initially thought you were a genius, worthy enough to be my battle servant, but it seems like you're too naive. Wan Fenghuan's eyes flickered with disdain. As the young master of the Dead Spirit tribe, he had witnessed too many schemes since he was young. He had also witnessed too many relatives, brothers, and partners betraying one another in the end and turning into enemies. In this world, friendship and so on were all too empty. Only interests were everlasting. Qin Nan, do you think everything will come to an end once you're dead? I'll now use a secret technique of the blood tribe to extract your blood essence and combine it with your cultivation will that has yet to dissipate. I'll refine a wisp of your soul fragment and suppress it. I'll torture you until you wish you were dead. And your flesh, I'll refine it into a blood puppet and make it my servant. Blood Rune let out a hideous laugh as he performed a series of hand seals. Qin Nan had offended him many times in the past. There was no way he would let Qin Nan go just like that. Torture my soul fragment? Refine it into a blood puppet? I'm sorry, but I'm not going to let you have your way today. However, in the nick of time, a roar exploded all of a sudden. At the center of the gust of wind, a strong life force was emitted, as Qin Nan's figure turned into a ray of light and dove into the gap in front of him at lightning speed. At that instant, a terrifying glow burst out from the crack as several ancient forbidding auras were activated inside it, causing the surroundings to tremble vigorously. It turned out that Qin Nan's plan was to use his flesh to resist the 6 monarch arts. His flesh was comparable to the 4th-layer martial monarch realm. Even if it was struck by the 6 monarch arts, it would not be destroyed completely. Under normal circumstances, when one's life force was extinguished, it meant that the cultivator had died. Therefore, Qin Nan activated the jade pendant given to him by Princess Miao Miao the moment his physical body was destroyed. According to Qin Nan's plan, The enormous life source energy in this jade pendant would be enough to awaken the vitality of his body. Then, he would take advantage of this time to enter the crack in the ground and use the powerful ancient restrictions to resist the pursuit. Of course, this plan was extremely dangerous. As long as his fleshly body collapsed slightly, or the life origin power failed to awaken his vitality, he would die completely and cease to exist. This, Meng Longxie, Wan Fenghun, Blood Rune, and the rest of the martial monarchs were stunned. Their eyes were filled with great disbelief. What just happened? How did Qin Nan come back to life when his life force had already been extinguished? This kid. Tang Qingshan soon collected his thoughts. The saber in his hand was no longer trembling, and his murderous aura was no longer chaotic. Even though he had concealed it well, if one were to take a closer look, one would still be able to see a smile on his face. Even though it was too reckless and the twist was quite shocking, either way, it was enough as long as Qin Nan was still alive. We've been tricked, chase after him. Wan Fenghun, Blood Rune, and the others collected their thoughts. Their faces darkened as they let out a roar. Their figures turned into rays of light as they dashed toward the crack in the distance. Under the circumstances, if they still allowed Qin Nan to escape, they would be utterly humiliated. Wan Fenghun, Blood Rune, you're both the genius Emperor Wu, the young masters of the Dead Spirit tribe and the Blood tribe. Let's see if you can catch me, a mere martial ancestor. Inside the forbidding aura, Qin Nan's hair drifted wildly. His left eye emitted a blinding glow as he yelled at the top. He then endured his injuries and dodged the traps as he ventured deeper into the crack. He was still not completely safe yet. Qin Nan, don't you be so full of yourself. Wan Fenghun and Blood Rune's faces darkened instantly. They executed various methods and monarch arts, resulting in a series of explosions. Meng Longxie died. Not far away, Tang Qingshan was emitting a boundless murderous aura under the support of the various wills. Each slash of his saber would cause the surroundings to turn pale white. You! Meng Longxie was startled. He immediately backed away in a miserable state. Time gradually passed. A few thousand breaths were gone in the blink of an eye. During this period, Qin Nan was like a fish diving into the ocean among the forbidding auras. He was able to reach the deepest part of the crack without being hit by any of the traps or forbidding auras. On the other hand, Wan Fenghun, Blood Rune, and the others felt like they had stepped into a swamp. They were almost hit by the traps and forbidding auras at times. Meng Longxie has been suppressed by Senior Brother. One of the 12 treasures will surely belong to Senior Brother. Even though these traps and forbidding auras aren't enough to kill Wan Fenghun, Blood Rune, and the others, they won't be able to reach the deepest part of the crack when the space changes. Phew, time to heal my injuries. Qin Nan let out a deep breath. He closed his eyes and guided the origin force of life in the jade pendant to heal his flesh. Even though the life force in his body had been awakened, his organs, tendons, and bones were all damaged. He was in a serious condition. Time gradually passed. After some time, Meng Longxie, who was lying on the ground, was covered in wounds. Facing Tang Qingshan's attacks, he had no choice but to activate the life-saving talisman and disappear into thin air. If Qin Nan had not interfered, he would have won the battle. By the way, Qin Nan had never paid any attention to Meng Longxie's anger. He had already recovered 70% of his injuries. The heart-wrenching pain had completely disappeared too. Qin Nan, take this. Finally, after breaking the traps and forbidding auras, Wan Fenghun and Blood Rune arrived at the deepest part of the crack. Their eyes were locked onto Qin Nan as they raised their hands and executed their attack. However, before they could say the word die and release their killing techniques, they suddenly noticed something. It was as if they had been doused with a bucket of ice water, and their bodies became extremely stiff. Space change. An ancient and majestic voice exploded in the entire space. Hee, Master Aoke, please calm down. Think about it, you are a dragon god. Such a small matter is nothing to you. Sima Kong showed no sign of shame. He chuckled with a fawning look. Sima Kong, what's wrong with your left arm? Qin Nan ignored their bickering. His gaze was fixed on Sima Kong's left arm. Sima Kong's left arm was wrapped in layers of white cloth. The cloth was engraved with ancient patterns, which emitted an ancient aura, like some kind of terrifying seal. Even Qin Nan could not peek through it with his left eye of the divine god of battle. Qin Nan, I bet you don't understand. This is a secret technique that I've invented. I'll seal his left arm and a monarch art at the same time, before accumulating it. The longer it takes to accumulate the power, the stronger the power of the monarch art will be. Xiao Chang's expression instantly changed. He became immensely pleased with himself, his face full of arrogance. In other words, I'll keep accumulating the power of the monarch art, and execute it when the time is right? Qin Nan's eyes flickered with astonishment. If Sima Kong were to use this method to recuperate for a long time, when he unleashed that attack again, the power of that attack would reach an unimaginable level. That's right, Sima Kong has to participate in the God Horoscope contest if he wants to improve his cultivation. With his current cultivation, he would only be sending himself to his death. However, with this move, there's still a glimmer of hope. The small worm said. I see. Qin Nan nodded. According to the rules of the monarch ranking and god ranking, as long as Sima Kong was able to acquire a god horoscope, even if his cultivation was only in the martial ancestor realm, he would still be able to achieve the martial god realm. For example, Princess Miao Miao's cultivation had always been in the martial ancestor realm. It was likely that the people of the Lost Herb Garden had already planned for her to take part in the God Horoscope contest. Suddenly, Qin Nan and the small worm were startled. They raised their heads and looked into the sky. At that instant, the two of them could feel a pair of terrifying eyes staring at them from the unseen world. Humph, even though I've weakened, do you really think you can peek at me? Little Worm's expression instantly became imperious as streams of ancient dragon chi burst out from his body with a purple glow, erasing his presence from the space. The prying intent dissipated too. Small Worm, you're the spirit of the dragon god. Are you able to sense or conceal the presence of the sky-severing dragon claw? Qin Nan took out a sky-severing dragon claw as a thought crossed his mind. If the small worm was able to do that, it would be a lot more convenient for him. Sky-severing dragon claw? What's that for? The small worm asked curiously. It's inside the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. Qin Nan immediately explained the rules. Damn, 330 of them are enough to become the successor of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain? Sima Kong held his breath. A dark place in his heart began to stir. The Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain had been sealed for a few thousand years. If he became the successor, didn't that mean he could take all the treasures and benefits inside? Ha ha, the master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain has come up with such a rule? Qin Nan, the bloodline of the sky-severing dragon tribe, is quite unique. I'm unable to conceal its presence for the time being, but... The small worm wore an excited expression. However, it suddenly switched the topic in the middle of its sentence. I have a way to let you peek at the entire space and the locations of the sky-severing dragon claw in other spaces, and I can also let you retrieve the sky-severing dragon claw from other spaces without relying on space manipulation. The small worm's tone deepened. What? Chapter 1353. It was not a big deal to be able to observe the entire space and the locations of the sky-severing dragon claws in other spaces. Most importantly, it was possible to teleport to other places without using space manipulation. If that was the case, wouldn't it be easier for him to resolve the danger and claim the sky-severing dragon claws from the treasure and danger zones? Cough cough, there are restrictions too. These 2 moves can only be used 3 times in an hour. On top of that, the locations of the sky-severing dragon claws are randomly chosen. It depends on your luck whether you can find a large number of them. Small Worm coughed softly, as if he had gone too far in boasting. Even so, it's enough. Qin Nan did not show any sign of disappointment. Small Worm's 2 moves, together with the restrictions, were quite outstanding. From a certain point of view, the complicated rules that the master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain had set up did not pose any threat to Little Worm. I'll now execute the sky-peaking dragon mirror of the 10 restrictions. Small Worm did not waste any time. His 2 illusionary dragon claws performed a series of magical hand seals. At that instant, the ancient cave began to vibrate vigorously as wisps of mystical white dragon chi floated out and formed an ancient mirror with the size of a palm, emitting a tremendous dragon aura. The dragon aura was not the aura of the ancient purple-golden battle dragon, nor was it the aura of the other dragon tribes. It was the aura of the sky-peaking dragon tribe, one of the top 10 ancient dragon tribes that no longer existed. Shine! Small Worm yelled and unleashed a stream of dragon god chi. A few ripples appeared on the surface of the ancient mirror as a magical eye technique burst out from it and disappeared into the surroundings. In less than 2 breaths, a pattern slowly appeared on the ancient mirror. Such a unique sky-peaking dragon mirror, the eye technique it emits is spreading into the surroundings. Qin Nan's eyes flickered with astonishment as he lowered his head to take a closer look. He saw a fiery mountain in the image. At the top of the mountain was a woman with a cultivation of the first layer martial monarch realm. Her long hair drifted in the wind as she performed hand seals to execute a series of monarch arts while fighting against a fiery phoenix over 30 zhang tall. Behind the flaming phoenix, there was a nest with various treasures. There was also a sky-severing dragon claw lying there quietly. This fiery mountain, it must be the fiery mountain. Small Worm, let's go somewhere else. Qin Nan withdrew his gaze and shook his head. There was no need to worry about the sky-severing dragon claw. Qin Nan immediately turned his head around when he saw that no one was responding to him. He was stunned after taking a glimpse. Senior Aoke, look at this lass. Her black hair is beautiful, her skin is fair, and her waist is really thin. Not bad indeed, but I prefer those with dragon horns on their heads. She looks awkward without them. Isn't that simple? She's a martial monarch. If you teach her some martial art, she can easily refine a pair of dragon god horns. You're right, I'll be taking her. A fatty and a dragon soul that was only 7 inches long were staring at the copper mirror. In just a few breaths' time, they had decided who the martial monarch realm woman belonged to. Qin Nan's lips twisted upon seeing this. He did not expect that this dignified soul of the dragon god would actually have such a hobby. That's quite similar to Longhu. A thought crossed Qin Nan's mind as he snapped. Forgive me for being straightforward, but with your cultivations, I only need 10 breaths' time to crush you 2 into pieces. 10 breaths? I'm the soul of the dragon god. The small worm subconsciously wanted to refute, but his aura weakened as a thought crossed his mind. It was true that he had a lot of tricks up his sleeves, but his strength was pitifully weak. It was impossible for him to pick up a female dragon. Keep going. The small worm straightened his face and activated the sky-peaking dragon mirror again. The image in the ancient mirror changed instantly. This time it was a giant blue lake. At the center of the lake stood a towering ancient tree. An eerie blue flower blossomed at the top of the tree. On each petal was a sky-severing dragon claw. In addition to that, 2 figures surrounded the lake with tremendous monarch glows were exchanging blows, causing the water within a few hundred li to boil, resulting in a shocking sight. Even though it was impossible to see the cultivations and faces of the 2 figures, Judging from the blinding monarch glows and their terrifying auras, they were the authorities of the Dead Spirit tribe and the Blood tribe respectively. Their cultivations were at least 8th layer martial monarch. 23 sky-severing dragon claws? Sima Kong's eyes were wide open. Haha, it seems like I'm in luck the second time. Qin Nan, I'll now use the second move. Remember, you'll be teleported back in 5 breaths. The small worm burst out laughing and warned. Only 5 breaths? Qin Nan's eyes flickered as he nodded. 10 forbidden arts of the illusionary dragon. The small worm opened his mouth and spat out a drop of dragon blood. It burst into flames in the air, which turned into pitch-black flames that encapsulated Qin Nan's figure. Whoosh! Qin Nan's figure vanished into thin air. At the same time, in a strange space on a vast lake. Ha ha ha, Martial Monarch Qinghong, is that all you've got? If that's the case, I'll gladly take all 23 sky-severing dragon claws. The Martial Monarch of the Dead Spirit tribe burst out laughing into the sky. Luoyin, stop being so full of yourself, it's only the beginning. Martial Monarch Qinghong wore an icy expression as he performed a hand seal. From the initial setup to the subsequent act of showing weakness, it was likely that Luoyin had already fallen into his trap. It was time for him to reel in the net. Humph, do you really think I can't tell that you're pretending to be weak? Martial Monarch Luoyin wore a cold grin as he activated a god talisman from his Sumeru ring. However, as the 2 8th layer martial monarchs were about to use their trump cards to execute their killing moves, they both turned their heads around as they became aware of something. Bang! An earth-shattering explosion was heard as a gigantic dragon figure appeared in the sky above the lake. A young man was standing on the dragon's head. Is that? Martial Monarch Luoyin and Martial Monarch Qinghong were startled. What just happened? Why did someone appear all of a sudden? Besides, why didn't they sense any energy at all? Senior Luoyin and Senior from the Blood tribe, I'm sorry, but I'll be taking all the sky-severing dragon claws. Chapter 1354. Buzz. At that instant, the eerie blue flower on the top of the towering tree emitted a blinding blue glow as if it was aware of something, which transformed into an ancient illusionary figure floating in the air and guarding the place. The ancient illusionary figure was extremely powerful. Even an 8th layer martial monarch would have a hard time defeating it. However, no matter how powerful it was, it could not stop the treasure-fishing rod. In the nick of time, the mysterious force of the treasure-fishing rod penetrated the ancient illusionary figure and went inside. It grabbed the sky-severing dragon claws and pulled them back into Qin Nan's hand. The entire process only took 2 breaths. Such a unique artifact. Martial Monarch Luoyin and Martial Monarch Qinghong were astounded. Even though they had seen countless powerful artifacts, it was their first time seeing an artifact with such a mystical force. Qin Nan die. On the 3rd breath, Martial Monarch Luoyin and Martial Monarch Qinghong finally collected their thought. Their faces became icy cold as their terrifying auras rose continuously, causing the rift nearby to tremble vigorously. This Qin Nan was utterly daring to steal the sky-severing dragon claws right in front of them. Martial Monarch Luoyin, in particular, was infuriated. It was the second time that Qin Nan had tried to harm him. You too, do you really think I didn't have any tricks up my sleeves? In the nick of time, Qin Nan showed no sign of panic. Instead, the smile on his face remained. Martial Monarch Luoyin and Martial Monarch Qinghong shuddered. That's right. With Qin Nan's current cultivation, why would he dare to rob the 2 authorities if he wasn't confident enough? Who cares what tricks he has up his sleeves? Die now. As expected of 8th layer martial monarchs, Martial Monarch Luoyin and Martial Monarch Qinghong immediately performed hand seals to execute their terrifying monarch art. Regardless of what tricks Qin Nan had up his sleeves, they would not allow Qin Nan to take the sky-severing dragon claws away. However, before they could execute their monarch arts, an unexpected change took place. Wisps of pitch-black flames burst out from Qin Nan's figure, together with a formidable force of the rift. "Seniors, thank you very much." Qin Nan cupped his hands and smiled. With a whoosh, his figure disappeared on the spot. This Martial Monarch Luoyin and Martial Monarch Qinghong, both from the Dead Spirit tribe and the Blood tribe, whose cultivations had reached the 8th layer Martial Monarch realm, were dumbfounded when they saw the vast lake. Disappeared? Furthermore, it had disappeared without a trace of aura? 2 breaths later, in the talisman space inside the cave, accompanied by a burst of black flames, Qin Nan's figure slowly appeared. "Phew, we now have a total of 92 sky-severing dragon claws. That's far from enough. We have to continue searching." Qin Nan gently exhaled, and a thin layer of sweat appeared on his forehead. Facing 2 8th-layer martial monarchs was not as easy as it seemed. Even though it had only lasted for 5 breaths, it was still extremely taxing on his mind. After all, the 2 8th-layer martial monarchs could easily destroy him within a single breath's time. Small Worm nodded and activated the sky-peaking dragon mirror again. However, for the 3rd time, only 5 sky-severing dragon claws appeared. Qin Nan pondered for a moment before deciding not to go any further. Small Worm was still in a weakened state, thus the trick would still affect him. If he did not have more than 10 sky-severing dragon claws, it would be unnecessary. "Let's explore the talisman space," Qin Nan said as they left the valley. He had used up all 3 chances, thus there was still some time left. He could not afford to waste it. Following this, the 2 humans and 1 dragon began to explore the surroundings. Perhaps it was because of the presence of the 2 clowns, Sima Kong and Little Worm. The whole process was not as tense as before, but rather relaxed and pleasant. Time gradually passed. When the 5th change took place, Qin Nan and the others had accumulated 100 sky-severing dragon claws. This master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain was so immoral. Why didn't he put the sky-severing dragon claws together instead of separating them? "I'm going to teach him a lesson when I see him." Small Worm's mouth twitched when he saw the 2 sky-severing dragon claws on the sky-peaking dragon mirror. He unleashed his dragon god Qi once again, causing the image on the mirror to change instantly. This time it was a valley. The entire valley was encapsulated by a strong presence of Qi, with countless strange flowers and herbs growing luxuriantly. Even through the ancient mirror they could sense a strong life force. At the bottom of the valley, there was a woman in a golden silk dress. She was barefooted and walked up step by step with an extraordinary aura. Qin Nan and Sima Kong were startled when they saw the woman. "Oh my, it seems like there are a few formidable existences in her body. Even my sky-peaking dragon mirror does not dare to go any closer. Otherwise, I'll be discovered. TSK, her feet and her figure, she's just too gorgeous. She's many times better than the last one. What a pity, she's someone from the Lost Herb Garden." Small Worm said in a sorrowful tone. "Wouldn't it be great if this glamorous woman was from the dragon tribe? Even if she was an ordinary human or some other ancient tribe, it would be fine too." This valley was comparable to the land of white bones. It seemed like the princess had most likely stumbled into one of the 12 hidden treasures. Qin Nan's eyes flickered as a faint grin appeared on his face. "What is it? Are you interested in her? This woman is no ordinary person. I'm afraid you won't stand a chance on your own. Of course, if you serve this god well, this god can help you when the time comes and let you marry her." Small Worm let out a cunning grin when he saw Qin Nan's expression. Marry the princess? It was as if an unknown part of Qin Nan's heart shuddered slightly. "Let's go to the next place." Qin Nan soon withdrew his thoughts and said, I'll leave it here for now. You can come to me when you've made up your mind. Small Worm did not advise further. He soon activated the sky-peaking dragon mirror again. Is this? When the image appeared, not only Qin Nan and Sima Kong, even Small Worm's attention was attracted by it. The image showed a huge dojo surrounded by Wan Fenghun, Jiang Kongzhou, Blood Rune, Lei Hao, Qilin, Wu Hong, Ling Po, Si Zhaoxue, 3 ninth-layer martial monarchs, and over 10 martial monarchs from various ancient tribes were fighting one another. Chapter 1355. 80 Sky-Severing Dragon Claws? Sima Kong swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Even the monarch heart in Qin Nan's body began to beat faster. No wonder so many geniuses, Emperor Wu and martial monarchs were fighting against one another. 80 Sky-Severing Dragon Claws was quite a huge fortune. TSK, this statue was no ordinary statue either. It was a succession statue from the ancient era. Once it was destroyed, it would reveal a decent succession. The Small Worm smacked his lips. It had been a long time since he last saw something from the ancient era. A succession? Sima Kong almost drooled when he heard this. A succession statue? Qin Nan was startled. If that was the case, this succession statue was most likely one of the 36 Disha hidden treasures. However, how was he going to get his hands on it? Sima Kong asked as a thought crossed his mind. Qin Nan had managed to scare 2 martial monarchs to buy him some time last time. However, this time, with so many geniuses, Emperor Wu, and martial monarchs fighting against one another, it was unlikely that he could scare them all away. The succession statue? Don't worry, I've got a plan. Teleport me there. Qin Nan murmured. His eyes flickered as a thought crossed his mind. Even though the plan was not perfect and risky, he had to give it a try since the treasure was right in front of him. You should be careful, the Small Worm warned while executing the 10 forbidden arts, the illusionary dragon. If Qin Nan were to die here, he would be in trouble too. Whoosh! Not long after, the black flames descended once again. Qin Nan disappeared once again. At the same time, in a strange space, on a huge dojo. Bang bang bang! A series of deafening explosions took place. The 3 ninth-layer martial monarchs fought one another in the air, while Wan Fenghun, Blood Rune, Qilin, Lei Hao, the geniuses, Emperor Wu, and the rest of the martial monarchs split into 3 groups and continued to attack one another. Wu Hong, Ling Po, Si Zhaoxue, the 3 of you are no match for us. Why don't you join forces with me and defeat Blood Rune and the others? Wan Fenghun and Jiang Kongzhou's figures shifted continuously as they yelled. Join you? Even though our rankings aren't as high as yours, the 2 of you aren't a match for the 3 of us. Why don't you join us? Blood Rune, Qilin Flame, and Vast Sky Thunder sneered. We, the successors of the 9 words ancient sea, will not ally with anyone from the ancient race. A glint flashed in the eyes of Wu Hong and the other 2, and they did not waver. Judging from the situation, the 3 of them had the lowest cultivation, thus they were in a disadvantageous position. However, they had long prepared some shocking moves to claim the 80 Sky-Severing Dragon Claws. What was that? At that instant, Wan Fenghun, Jiang Kongzhou, and the others, and the 3 ninth-layer martial monarchs in the sky turned their heads in astonishment as they sensed something. Wan Fenghun, Blood Rune, and everyone else, it's been a while. A voice could be heard all of a sudden. A puff of pitch-black flames was ignited in the air, as a human figure appeared. Qin Nan? Wan Fenghun, Jiang Kongzhou, and the rest of the martial monarchs were startled. What was going on? Why would Qin Nan show up here all of a sudden? Last time, you all teamed up to hunt me down. This time, I'll be taking your sky-severing dragon claws, Qin Nan said calmly. He swung the treasure-fishing rod and retrieved the 80 sky-severing dragon claws. Ha ha, Qin Nan, you really chose to walk the path of hell when there was a path to heaven instead. Do you really think you can take all the sky-severing dragon claws on your own? Everyone, let's kill him together. Wan Fenghun did not panic at all. He burst out laughing in a pleasant mood. In his opinion, Qin Nan was simply courting death by showing himself here. Last time, he was lucky enough to escape, but this time, he would not let it happen again. Blood Rune, Qilin Flame, and Vast Sky Thunder were overjoyed too, before their expressions turned cold. Bang! At that instant, the geniuses, Emperor Wu, and the martial monarchs unleashed tremendous auras, shaking the spacious dojo. The space in the surroundings was sealed off. How ridiculous! Do you think I would dare to take all the sky-severing dragon claws on my own without any confidence? Qin Nan shook his head. His eyes sharpened as a magnificent aura burst out from his body, soaring into the sky like a peerless saber. The figures of the crowd shuddered as their eyes were filled with disbelief. What just happened? How could Qin Nan, who was only a peak martial ancestor, unleash an aura equivalent to the 6th-layer martial monarch realm, or even the 7th-layer martial monarch realm? He was trying to trick them. A moment later, a roar exploded, who turned out to be Jiang Kongzhou. In his opinion, Qin Nan was only a martial ancestor. He was most likely trying to buy some time by unleashing his aura, or trying to achieve some other goal. So what if your body has temporarily acquired the strength of the 7th-layer martial monarch realm? Uncle, do it! Wan Fenghun yelled as he collected his thoughts. The 3 9th-layer martial monarchs in the air immediately collected their thoughts and performed hand seals to execute 3 terrifying forbidden arts. Cracks began to appear on the dojo, resulting in an extraordinary sight. I didn't expect you to see through my trick so quickly, but it's only the beginning. Qin Nan's eyes flickered with determination as he dashed forward and slashed at the statue with his saber. Bang! Following a loud crash, the statue was slashed into pieces with brute force. The moment it shattered into pieces, a blinding glow burst out from the dojo. Even the auras of the martial monarchs were unable to suppress it. "Who's awakened me?" A thunderous voice could be heard. A figure surrounded by red lightning slowly emerged from the light, emitting a terrifying aura. Wan Fenghun, Jiang Kongzhou, and the others were stunned once again. No one had expected that there would be such a mystery hidden within the statue. Since I've been awakened, according to the rules, everyone will now take part in the trial. Those who pass the trial will receive my succession. The thunderous voice spoke once again and waved its hand. At that instant, the sky above the dojo was covered in lightning. Everyone was trapped inside the dojo. "Senior, I'm sorry, but I won't be taking part in the trial." Qin Nan, who was standing not far away, let out a calm smile upon seeing this. "It's almost time. How bold, kneel down." It was as if the giant red thunderbolt had its reverse scale touched, causing its eyes to spit out flames of fury. With a leap, it arrived before Qin Nan and swung its palm at him. The slap was strong enough to shatter an 8th-layer martial monarch into pieces. "Qin Nan, you're dead." Wan Fenghun, Blood Rune, and the others were overjoyed seeing this. Even though they were still clueless about the situation, they only knew that there was no way Qin Nan would be able to escape this time. "Everyone, goodbye." Qin Nan's expression remained the same. In the nick of time, a black flame appeared as his figure vanished into thin air. Chapter 1356. A moment later, in another space. As soon as Qin Nan's figure appeared, 2 voices echoed in his ears. "Damn, is that red lightning figure the weeping blood lightning monarch from 3,000 years ago? She has a nice body." Sima Kong and Small Worm stared at the screen with great focus. Qin Nan glanced at the screen and saw Wan Fenghun, Jiang Kongzhou, Blood Rune, the geniuses, Emperor Wu, the martial monarchs, and the weeping blood lightning monarch. Their faces were still filled with astonishment. It was obvious that Qin Nan's sudden disappearance was a great shock to them. "Time is running short, let's continue." Qin Nan withdrew his gaze and said, "Now that Small Worm and Sima Kong were required to activate the Skyless Dojo, they would need 420 sky-severing dragon claws in total. They now had 180 sky-severing dragon claws, thus they were still short of 240. The 2 humans and 1 dragon continued to search for the sky-severing dragon claws. Perhaps it was due to their bad luck. By the time the 7th space warp ended, they had used the sky-peaking dragon mirror 6 times. Each time, they only saw 2 or 3 sky-severing dragon claws. Not once did they see more than 10 of them. That being said, they were not completely empty-handed. In the 7th space, they were attacked by more than 10 martial ancestor realm cultivators and 3 martial monarchs. After robbing them, they now had 230 sky-severing dragon claws. Such a strong presence of the Rift Force. Small Worm said in astonishment as soon as he appeared in the 8th space. Qin Nan raised his head and scanned his surroundings. The whole space was covered in an eerie gray-white color, with wisps of gray aura floating in the air, emitting strong ripples of the rift. The 8th space was actually a rift space. Master A-OK, that's not the point. Hurry up and use the sky-peaking dragon mirror. I'll boost your luck this time. At the side, Sima Kong winked and said, "Stay away from me. If it weren't for your bad luck, how could you not find anything 6 times in a row?" Small Worm rolled his eyes while firing the sky-peaking dragon mirror. As soon as the image appeared, the eyes of the 3 were attracted to it. A grayish-white pagoda appeared in the mirror. It was 13 stories tall. Even through the mirror, one could still feel the desolate void will emitted from the pagoda. It was obvious that the pagoda was in the 8th space. Only 3 sky-severing dragon claws. Sima Kong was the first to notice the 3 sky-severing dragon claws at the top of the pagoda. His face was filled with disappointment and even a hint of doubt. The master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain was such a scammer. No way, he had to get some soul water to wash his claws. Little Chong also had a gloomy expression. Zhang Xianyun of the Cloud? Qin Nan was about to withdraw his gaze when he saw 4 figures flying toward the pagoda. They were none other than the 1,000 fallen of the Xianyun Villa, Ji Qimei and Li Qima. After Zhang Xianyun and the other 3 arrived, they nodded to each other. Then, they raised their heads and made 4 different seals. They shot out talismans that shone with dazzling light and pasted them on the pagoda. Small Worm, what were they doing? Qin Nan asked with a frown. The sky-peaking dragon claws were right at the top of the pagoda. Why did they fire the talismans instead of taking them? They had fired 4 different teleportation talismans at different locations. After combining them with the pagoda, they were able to utilize the force of the rift to form 4 powerful ancient teleportation formations. People from the outside world could use the teleportation formations to come to the 8th space. Small Worm said indifferently after taking a quick glance. Teleporting people from the outside world? Were they trying to teleport the people of the 3 great factions and the undead tribe here? Qin Nan was startled, but he soon shook his head. If that was the only reason, they could have just let the experts enter the 8th space from the entrance of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. Why would they waste so much effort? Small Worm, if they didn't combine the teleportation talismans with the pagoda, wouldn't they be able to complete the teleportation formation? Qin Nan's heart skipped a beat as he realized something. That being said, the master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain had created the space. Even the strongest teleportation formation would not be able to enter the 8th space with brute force. It could only be done by utilizing the force of the rift in the 8th space. Small Worm nodded. Is that so? Qin Nan squinted. If that was the case, then it was strange. Every time the space changed, it was random. It was not strange for the 4 of them to stumble into each other in the same space. Most importantly, why did they have to stumble into each other in the 8th space that was filled with the force of the rift? Besides, they had just arrived in the 8th space. How did they find the pagoda? If it was a coincidence, then it was too much of a coincidence. The three formidable authorities, Monarch ranking, God ranking, and South Heaven Gate, had already set up their trap. The four of them must be part of the South Heaven Gate's plan. Even though Qin Nan had no idea what they were up to, he had to be careful when he was trying to achieve the martial monarch realm. Qin Nan murmured. Luckily, he had the sky-peaking dragon mirror. Otherwise, he would be clueless. Damn, there was only one of them again. On the other hand, when the sky-peaking dragon mirror was activated once again, Sima Kong could not help but curse when he saw the image displayed. Including the previous 7 times, it was the 8th time. Could it be that the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain no longer had a place where the sky-severing dragon claws were gathered? Damn it, this god doesn't believe in heresy today. The dragon soul's blood is ever-changing. Small Worm cursed. He performed a hand seal and flicked his finger, firing a colorful, illusionary drop of blood into the sky-peaking dragon mirror. The entire heaven-peaking dragon mirror immediately buzzed and trembled. The eye force emitted from it began to soar, while the scene within the mirror rapidly changed. 5 breaths later, the image slowly came to a stop. F***Kami. Small Worm and Sima Kong immediately glanced at it. The former was astounded with a glimpse, while the latter could not help but curse. What was inside? Qin Nan's attention was attracted. He raised his head and his eyes widened when he saw the image. Within the image was a pitch-black battlefield. Countless corpses and broken magical treasures littered the ground. Ravines crisscrossed the ground, and it was an incomparably messy scene. Even after tens of thousands of years had passed, the horrifying battle still seemed to have not dissipated, and it gave one an icy cold feeling of impact. On top of that, on top of a hill stood a dim golden head, surrounded by sky-severing dragon claws. 818 Jiu Jiu 12150, there were 150 sky-severing dragon claws here. Sima Kong's voice was filled with excitement. 150 sky-severing dragon claws. It was almost double the number of sky-severing dragon claws they had last time. 150? Phew, if that's the case, we're only missing. Qin Nan took a deep breath as his heart skipped a beat. However, right at this moment, a sudden change occurred. The golden skull standing on the ground seemed to have come alive. It lifted slightly and stared at Qin Nan as if it had traveled a great distance. Crap, the destruction will. Chapter 1357. Whoosh. An invisible force burst out from the sky-peaking dragon mirror at a terrifying pace. It penetrated the destruction armor and entered Qin Nan's left eye. Gasp! Qin Nan immediately took a deep breath and took a step backward. At that instant, it felt like a golden needle had pierced into his left eye. Despite how extraordinary his left eye was, he could still feel a sharp pain from it. Monarch heart. Qin Nan's figure tensed. He was about to unleash his full strength without hesitation. However, at this moment, the cold feeling in his heart suddenly disappeared, and the slightly raised golden head in the image returned to normal. The attack was gone? Qin Nan's eyes glittered. What was going on with Qin Nan? Sima Kong was utterly confused. Why did Qin Nan take a deep breath all of a sudden? Qin Nan, what just happened? The joy on the small worm's face was replaced by a stern look. It could vaguely guess that Qin Nan had been attacked by some invisible force. If that was the case, it would be troublesome. After all, in this world, there were very few attacks that it could not detect. This battlefield is a little strange. I was attacked by an invisible force just then, Qin Nan said as he scanned his flesh with his divine sense. Following a glimpse, his face was filled with astonishment. What was going on? Why was his flesh and left eye perfectly unharmed? Wasn't the attack trying to harm him? Was that really the case? Qin Nan, let's not go to this place. Little Bug's eyes flashed as it slowly opened its mouth to speak. As a dragon god, it knew very well that there were many taboos on this world that could not be provoked. Otherwise, it would definitely bring about a great disaster. No way, they had to go inside. Qin Nan immediately shook his head with a firm expression after hearing this. A single attack that did not harm him was able to cause his left eye of the divine god of battle to feel a piercing pain. In that case, this place was very likely related to the battle god. Although this couldn't be another part of the war god, no matter what, he had to go down and take a look. Alright then, don't blame me for not reminding you when the time comes. Small Worm looked at Qin Nan's expression. After a few moments of silence, it shook its dragon tail and formed a hand seal, unleashing the 10 forbidden arts of Void Dragon. In any case, this brat was the tribulation of 3 lifetimes of that lord. If something really happened to him, that lord would not just stand by and watch. Whoosh! A while later, under the gaze of Small Worm and Sima Kong, Qin Nan's figure disappeared and reappeared on the pitch-black battlefield. Shwa! As soon as Qin Nan appeared, he reached out his hand and stored the 150 sky-severing dragon claws into his summer ring. Time was limited. Regardless of whether he was able to uncover the secrets of this place, he had to take the sky-severing dragon claws with him. Why wasn't the golden head showing any reaction? If that was the case, Qin Nan glanced at it with his left eye and slashed forward with the heaven-shattering saber without hesitation. If the head was indeed extraordinary, it would reveal its true appearance with the slash. Bang! Following a soft sound, the golden head was sliced in half like a piece of dead wood. It could not resist the saber glow at all. Qin Nan was astounded. What was going on? Let's take a look at the battlefield first. Qin Nan did not overthink it. He raised his head and glanced at the pitch-black battlefield. The entire battlefield was incredibly vast, as if a war between the heavens and earth had taken place here during the ancient era. In addition to that, upon seeing this, Qin Nan's heart was filled with a sense of insignificance, and a sense of loneliness as if he had been cut off from the rest of the world. That skeleton, those 3 broken treasures, and that thing over there. Qin Nan adjusted his thoughts and scanned his surroundings with his left eye. The final result made him feel slightly disappointed. None of the items in the room moved at all. It was as if the attack had appeared out of nowhere. Suddenly, Qin Nan saw a beast hide under one of the corpses. Qin Nan immediately pulled the beast hide out with a kick. The beast hide was not huge. It was similar to a piece of paper, covered in a thick layer of dust. It did not show any sign of movement. Qin Nan frowned slightly. He flicked his finger and flicked the dust away. Bang! As soon as the dust fell to the ground, the ancient beast hide emitted an ancient glow, followed by an overwhelming aura surging in all directions. An ancient drawing was displayed on the beast hide. In the drawing, there were countless figures and glows, as if they were all executing shocking moves and fighting one another. However, among the figures, a young man stood out among them. It was as if while everyone else was dead, this young man was alive. Qin Nan's hand began to tremble. He didn't know why, but when he saw this young man, there was an unknown throbbing in his heart. Do you remember now? A gentle voice that seemed to have transcended time and space echoed in Qin Nan's ears and soul from the young man's mouth and the drawing. Remember what? Qin Nan subconsciously asked. However, right after he asked those words, the black flames on his body began to burn once again. His figure disappeared from where he stood. The ancient beast hide drawing did not leave with him. It slowly floated down from his hand. Don't forget. The gentle voice continued to echo, before it fell silent in the end. The entire ancient beast skin painting also disappeared without a trace. Meanwhile, deep inside the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain, a green figure stood motionless in front of a water mirror. Countless images flickered in the water mirror. If anyone was here, they would discover that the images were the scenes of the various danger spots. Where did the people sent by the monarch ranking and god ranking go? No, I must find them today. the blue figure murmured to himself. He waved his hand and fired wisps of ancient glows. However, he did not notice that Qin Nan had entered a mystical place that even he had no idea what was going on. Meanwhile, at the southernmost part of the Kanglan continent, the South Heaven Gate. Until now, no one in the Kanglan continent knew that the inside of the South Heaven Gate was pitch black. In the darkness there were countless rare artifacts, corpses, ancient books, successions, etc., floating in the air like stars in the night sky. The spirit of the South Heaven Gate was unable to fully control the pitch-black land. What it could grasp was only half of this. In the depths of the darkness, it still hadn't completely refined it, and no one knew what was hidden in the depths of the darkness. As such, it had no idea that deep inside the South Heaven Gate, a terrifying existence slowly opened its right eye. Where did the drawing come from? Chapter 1358. Meanwhile, in the eighth space of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. Although Qin Nan's figure had returned to his original spot, his mind was still filled with the scene that had taken place a moment ago. He was now sure that the beast-hide drawing had nothing to do with the divine god of battle. However, apart from the divine battle spirit, what else was related to him? If it wasn't the divine god of battle, why did the young man give him a sense of familiarity from his soul? Do you remember now? What are you trying to remember? Qin Nan murmured. Master K, what's wrong with Qin Nan? Sima Kong immediately transmitted his voice. It was his first time seeing Qin Nan acting like this. This kid. Small Worm's eyes flickered, but he did not say anything. There was no need to guess. He was sure that Qin Nan had seen something that he and Sima Kong had missed on the pitch-black battlefield. As the spirit of the dragon god, he clearly knew what it meant. Apart from the senior's tribulation of 3 lifetimes and the fact that he achieved the martial monarch realm on his own, what other secrets does this kid have that it's related to such a mysterious existence? Little Worm muttered to himself as a hint of doubt appeared in his eyes. He realized that his understanding of Qin Nan was not as complete as he thought. Fellow cultivators, please remember. When the 11th space change, all cultivators who are still alive will enter the deepest part of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. Exactly at that moment, an ancient, majestic sound that sounded like thunder suddenly exploded in the sky of the 8th space, shaking the whole place. The 11th space change? The deepest part of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain? Qin Nan, who was filled with doubts, immediately collected his thoughts upon hearing the words. Small Worm, Sima Kong, we can only enter 2 spaces. Time is running short, let's go now. Qin Nan took a deep breath and shook his head to clear his thoughts before he spoke. Although he was eager to know what was going on with the ancient beast-hide drawing, the clues he had were too limited. It was impossible for him to figure it out at the moment. Their priority now was to collect the sky-severing dragon claws. After all, they only had 380 sky-severing dragon claws. They still needed 60 more. If they failed to collect all the sky-severing dragon claws in the end, all their efforts would be in vain. What's the rush? Once we arrive at the 9th space, I'll use a drop of dragon soul blood to find over 100 sky-severing dragon claws with ease. Little Worm showed off his dragon's might. Although he was bragging, his body was very honest and he followed. Come on, without my luck, how are we going to find the sky-severing dragon claws? Sima Kong said disdainfully. Kid. Small Worm's lips twitching. That's enough, someone has their eyes on us. It's a 4th-layer martial monarch. Qin Nan halted in his tracks as his eyes flickered with astonishment. Previously, even a 4th-layer martial monarch would not dare to attack him after discovering that he had a large number of sky-severing dragon claws. However, after hearing the words of the master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain, these martial monarchs would choose to take the risk. As Qin Nan thought, the 4th-layer martial monarch soon showed up and a huge battle broke out. In addition to that, battles were taking place in the other treasure grounds and danger zones too. From this moment on, the battle between all the cultivators became truly intense. Time gradually passed. Almost an hour was gone in the blink of an eye. During this period, many cultivators had come to the 10th space and fought fiercer battles. As for Qin Nan and his crew, they were a lot luckier than before. Apart from the 3 places where the sky-peaking dragon mirror had detected 10 sky-severing dragon claws, they were also attacked by many cultivators. After defeating the cultivators, the sky-severing dragon claws and rare artifacts were looted by Qin Nan and Sima Kong. Break. Meanwhile, in the 10th space, on a snow-white valley, Qin Nan sprang into the sky and slashed forward. Wisps of sky-desolating saber intent surged forward and shattered the 8 martial ancestor in front of him into pieces. Retrieve. Qin Nan flung his sleeves and collected the sky-severing dragon claws. Qin Nan, how many sky-severing dragon claws do we have now? Small Worm asked while fiddling with his whiskers out of boredom. 490, it's more than enough. Qin Nan said. He withdrew his aura and sat down with his legs crossed on the valley. It would not take long for the 11th change of the space to arrive. Before that, it would be better for him to heal the remaining injuries in his body. Small Worm and Sima Kong did not disturb him. They began to whisper to one another as if they were planning something. Time continued to trickle by. At this final juncture, everything started to become more intense. One cultivator after another fought one another and died one after another. Even the martial monarchs were no exception. The cruelty of the world of martial arts was vividly displayed. Bang! Finally, an earth-shattering explosion took place in the 10th space after an unknown period of time. The whole place began to twist as if it were being grabbed by an ancient hand. At that instant, Qin Nan's eyes slowly sprang open. Among the other places of danger and treasure, Princess Miao Miao, Tang Qingshan, Xiao Yunjue, Meng Longxie, Wan Fenghun, Zhan Bawang, Jiang Kongzhou, Li Qima, Blood Rune, Qilin Flame, Vast Sky Thunder, Gong Yang, and the rest of the geniuses, Emperor Wu, and the authorities of various factions and ancient tribes who had reached the 8th layer martial monarch realm or above. Regardless of whether they were fighting or in the mysterious successions, they all raised their heads at the same time and gazed into the sky. Their eyes flickered with a godly glow. Is it finally here? Qin Nan exhaled deeply and clenched his fist. His expression began to become incomparably resolute. He had been waiting for this moment for so long that he could no longer remember when the terrifying monarch heart in his body and the battle blood in his body finally boiled. Space change. The ancient and imperious voice exploded once again. Chapter 1359. The teleportation took longer than the previous 10 times. 2,000 breaths later, Qin Nan, Small Worm, and Sima Kong finally felt their bodies lighten as they found themselves in an unfamiliar space. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The moment they appeared, Qin Nan's divine sense clearly sensed the genius Emperor Wu, martial monarchs, and martial ancestor cultivators around him falling like a heavy downpour. There were 1,400 cultivators when they first entered the place, but after 10 teleportations, there were still 1,280 cultivators left. Qin Nan's eyes flickered. He was sure that the master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain had secretly lowered the risk of dying in the dangerous places, allowing more cultivators to come to the deepest part of the place, resulting in a spectacular scene. Could that be the 1 lifetime 3 lifetimes flower that had disappeared? Look over there, it's a mountain of swords formed by monarch weapons. Holy crap, that river is the legendary innate Pure Qi River. A moment later, a series of astonished voices could be heard in the originally silent space. Even the genius Emperor Wu and the martial monarchs were no exception. Qin Nan raised his brows and glanced at his surroundings. After taking a look, His face immediately revealed a trace of shock. The cultivators had all landed on a blue dojo with a circumference of 10,000 li. Around the dojo, on the spacious land, there were rivers that looked like ancient dragons crawling on the ground. They were emitting a brilliant glow and a strong presence of qi, as if they contained endless secrets. On both sides of the river were numerous incomparably precious natural treasures from the ancient times. They swayed with the wind and grew healthily, and there were countless of them. In addition to that, in the distance there were mountains of swords, spears, treasures, etc. that were made up of countless monarch weapons. They soared into the sky and emitted blinding monarch glows as their auras surged in all directions. Have plenty of treasure. Even though Sima Kong was the successor of the Emperor of Thieves, who was destined to become the god of thieves in the future, and had seen countless rare artifacts, his mind was greatly impacted. He could not even speak properly. "Tsk, what's there to be surprised about? Let me tell you, back then, in each of my 999 dragon caves, there were all kinds of divine artifacts and heaven-reaching immortal medicines. Everything you could think of was there." Although Small Worm's tone was full of disdain, its dragon eyes were fixed on an ancient tree with branches and leaves that resembled dragons. It even swallowed its saliva from time to time. That was the dragon blood azure soul tree they were talking about. If they could refine that tree, then their soul would be able to obtain a very good nourishment. Brat die. Hand over the dragon claw. At this moment, a series of yells exploded in succession. The eyes of many cultivators and martial monarchs on the dojo turned cold. Some even executed their monarch arts to attack Qin Nan. Qin Nan. At that instant, among the cultivators, Meng Lang, Xie Wan Fenghun, Jiang Kongzhou, the Blood Rune, the Qilin Flame, Lei Hao, Wu Hong, Ling Po, Si Zhaoxue, the rest of the geniuses, and martial monarch Luoyin, martial monarch Juku, and the rest of the authorities all glanced at Qin Nan. Their eyes were extremely cold, with surging murderous intents. They clearly remembered what Qin Nan had done to them when the space changed. "What are you looking at?" As soon as Qin Nan realized something, a slightly displeased voice could be heard. Following it, Princess Miao Miao's glamorous figure stepped out from the crowd and approached Qin Nan. She glanced at Meng Lang, Xie Wan Fenghun, and the others. "If you want to fight, I'm more than willing to play along." Tang Qingshan and Gong Yang flew out from the crowd and spoke coldly. "Damn it." Meng Lang, Xie Wan Fenghun, Jiang Kongzhou, and the rest of the geniuses and authorities of Emperor Wu were startled. Tang Qingshan and Gong Yang were not afraid, but Princess Miao Miao was too troublesome to deal with. If they were to fight Princess Miao Miao now, it would not be worth it. With the princess around, there was no need to worry about him. Not far away, the Dragon Emperor, the nine-tailed monarch beast, and Ao Tsangtian let out relieved sighs upon seeing this. However, as the situation began to turn chaotic, an unexpected change took place. "Fellow cultivators, no violence is allowed. Otherwise, you will be responsible for the consequences." An ear-piercing shriek exploded all of a sudden. Wisps of icy, pitch-black qi appeared from all directions, which transformed into a hunchbacked old man with a face full of scars and a sinister look in his eyes. The martial ancestor realm cultivators and martial monarchs, who were in the middle of attacking, were startled. A great chill ran down their spines. They immediately halted their monarch arts, not daring to execute them. The reason being that they could smell death at that instant. "Your old man Kanming?" A ninth-layer martial monarch from the ocean tribe blurted out in astonishment as a thought crossed his mind when he saw the old man. "What? Old man Kanming?" The rest of the authorities were startled. 3,000 years ago, when the God Horoscope contest took place, the Sun and Moon Sword God and the others had successfully achieved the martial god realm. This old man Kanming was not willing to accept his failure, thus he went on a rampage and killed a few peak martial monarchs. He even attacked a martial god ferociously. They had always thought old man Kanming had been killed by a martial god, but now, he had appeared deep inside the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. Who would have thought someone would still remember me? Old man Kanming revealed a row of pitch-black teeth. His sinister gaze subconsciously scanned Li Qi, Mo Zhang Xianyun, and the others. Kanming, let's not waste any more time. Now that we've reached the deepest part of the mountain, when can we start selecting the successor and activate the Skyless Dojo? An old peak martial monarch from the battle tribe asked. Qin Nan and the rest of the crowd gathered their attention onto Old Man Tsaming's figure at that instant. To them, the last two matters were the most important. Fellow cultivators, I'm sorry, my master has some matters to attend to, so he'll only be out for a while. However, during the wait, you are free to move freely within 10,000 li and take the treasures. You are also allowed to trade the sky-severing dragon claws. Toward the end, Old Man Tsaming's voice suddenly became louder, like sharp swords piercing through the air. What? They were allowed to trade the sky-severing dragon claws. Chapter 1360. Very well. Xiao Yunjue, Meng Longxie, and Wan Fenghun quickly reacted with joy. Initially, they only had around 200 sky-severing dragon claws, thus they had no chance of becoming the successor of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. However, with the new rules, they would surely be able to acquire 330 sky-severing dragon claws. Wasn't the master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain being too greedy? Why didn't he tell them the rules earlier? Small Worm wore a displeased look. If he knew they could trade the claws, why would he waste the effort to use the two secret arts? Couldn't he just go and buy them? Senior Kanming, according to the rules, more than one person would have 330 sky-severing dragon claws. How are we going to decide the successor? Qin Nan brought his fists together and asked with a calm expression. Xiao Yunjue, Wan Fenghun, Meng Longxie, and the others who had just had the thought were startled too. Obviously, this question struck a chord in their hearts. I'm not sure how we're going to decide the successor, but I can tell you two things. Firstly, the person who has acquired 330 sky-severing dragon claws will have a great advantage. Secondly, 330 sky-severing dragon claws will be enough. It won't be a competition to see who has the most dragon claws. Old Man Kanming glanced at Qin Nan and said, if that was the case, it was not a big deal. Qin Nan nodded slightly and mumbled in his heart. Even though the master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain had changed the rules all of a sudden, thus putting him in a disadvantageous position, there must be something that he was unaware of that had forced him to change it. That's all I have to say. It's up to you all to decide what to do next. Old Man Kanming spoke once again. With a flicker, he landed at the edge of the dojo and slowly closed his eyes, as if he had fallen asleep. Fellow cultivators, there's no need to explain my identity. As long as you're willing to sell the extra sky-severing dragon claws to me, I won't mistreat you. Everyone. Xiao Yunjue, Wan Fenghun, and Meng Longxie stepped forward simultaneously, followed by the geniuses, Emperor Wu, and the rest of the martial monarchs. That being said, many martial ancestor realm cultivators clenched their teeth and began to purchase the sky-severing dragon claws. After all, they did not have enough sky-severing dragon claws to enter the Skyless Dojo. At that instant the entire Blue Dojo was bustling with noise. Qin Nan is going to grab some treasures. Small Worm thought of something, and a smile appeared on its face. It waved its tail and flew forward. Hey Mr. K, wait for me. Sima Kong came back to his senses and quickly followed him. Qin Nan, where did you find this strange insect? Princess Meow Meow stared at Small Worm's back as a strange light flashed across her eyes. This insect's lineage seems to be quite impressive. Should I tie it up and give it to the master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain? That's A-OK, a member of the dragon tribe. He's staying with me for the time being since he's injured. By the way, Princess, senior brother, Brother Yang, Do you have enough sky-severing dragon claws? Qin Nan asked as a thought crossed his mind. I don't need the dragon claws. I can give them to you if you need them. Princess Meow Meow and the others shook their heads. Even though becoming the successor of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain was extremely tempting, they had already acquired one of the 12 treasures, thus there was no need for them to compete for it. Qin Nan, what are you waiting for? Why aren't you going to fight for the treasure with me? Princess Meow Meow rolled her eyes and said with a pleasant voice, I'll do as you say. Qin Nan responded and followed the princess. I didn't notice it before, but why does this Qin Nan give me a familiar feeling? Furthermore, it's from the battle blood. Among the crowd, Zhan Boang frowned as he stared at Qin Nan's back. After a slight ponder, he made up his mind and followed behind Qin Nan. Following this, Xiao Yunjue, Wan Fenghun, Meng Longxie, and the others proceeded to search for the treasures after purchasing the sky-severing dragon claws. One had to know that there were many heavenly treasures here that were not available even in their respective forces. Time gradually passed. An hour later. Fellow cultivators, I'm sorry for being late. An ancient and dignified voice suddenly rang out on the green dojo. At this moment, the entire space seemed to tremble slightly as it began to brighten up. The master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain had appeared? Qin Nan, Princess Meow Meow, Tang Qingshan, the geniuses, Emperor Wu, the martial monarchs, the martial ancestor, and the rogue cultivators were startled. They immediately turned their heads around. A figure had appeared on the blue dojo out of nowhere. The figure was a short-haired young man wearing a blue robe. On his shoulder was a dark golden eagle the size of a palm. His figure was not emitting any aura. Compared to the magical hair sword god and martial serendipity pavilion, the master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain felt extremely gentle, like an ordinary young master of a renowned clan. Greetings, master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. At that instant, the authorities of various factions were the first to react. They brought their fists together respectfully. Regardless of how amiable the master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain was, he was still one of the greatest authorities in the Kanglan continent. He could easily decide the life and death of countless people with a snap of his finger. A single action could easily stir a great storm in the Kanglan continent. Everyone is being too polite. Let's skip the nonsense and get straight to the point. Before I choose my successor and activate the Skyless Dojo, those who have acquired the 12 Tianba hidden treasures and 36 Disha hidden treasures, please step forward and accept the succession. However, remember one thing, once you've acquired the Tianba hidden treasures, you won't be my successor. The master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain glanced at the crowd and said with a calm smile, The Tianba hidden treasures? Many cultivators were startled. They had no idea that there were other successions in the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain. Thank you, Senior. At that instant, Princess Meow Meow, Tang Qingshan, Gong Yang, Ling Po, Si Zhaoxue, and more than 10 other genius martial monarchs stepped forward. There were 20 of them in total. As for the rest of you, since none of you stepped forward, I'll assume you've given up. The master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain glanced at Zhang Xianyun and the others. He raised his hand and flicked his finger forward. Bang! A series of deafening explosions took place. Several blue altars 3 zhang tall and 10 zhang wide appeared in the rift. Each of the altars was emitting a magical aura. Qin Nan, as the person I've chosen, you must take the successor. Otherwise, I'm going to teach you a lesson. Princess Meow Meow waved her fist at Qin Nan and Harumph. She landed on the leading altar with a kick. Tang Qingshan and the others flew out and landed on the altars. Mystical glows began to emit from the altars. Since I've decided on the successor of the Tianba hidden treasures, it's time to choose my successor. The smile on the master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain's face slowly withdrew. Chapter 1361. Even though most of the cultivators did not acquire 330 sky-severing dragon claws, they were still paying close attention to the selection. As one of the 6 great forbidden lands, choosing a successor was no small matter. It was not exaggerating to say that the situation in the half-god region would undergo a great change after the selection of the successor was made. The people who had acquired 330 sky-severing dragon claws were Xiao Yunjue, Wan Fenghun, Meng Longxie, and Qin Nan. Let me ask you, are you willing to be my successor? The master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain seemed to be aware of the doubts in the crowd's eyes. Qin Nan had 330 sky-severing dragon claws? Damn, I don't remember him taking part in the selection. How lucky was this guy? He was only in the lower 8th grade, yet he was able to acquire so many sky-severing dragon claws on his own. When the crowd heard this, their expressions changed. Even if Qin Nan had surpassed the rules of cultivation, his cultivation was only at the peak martial ancestor realm, not to mention that he was only in the lower 8th grade at the beginning, and did not even take part in the selection. If it weren't for the change in the rules, the successor of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain would be Qin Nan instead. Xiao Yunjue and the others would not stand a chance. This guy. The Blood Rune, Qilin Flame, Vast Sky Thunder, Martial Monarch Luoyin, Martial Monarch Juku, and the rest of the authorities wore unpleasant looks. They clearly knew why Qin Nan had so many sky-severing dragon claws. So what if he did? Xiao Yunjue, Wan Fenghun, and Meng Longxie glanced at Qin Nan and grinned coldly. If they had the chance to take part in the selection, they would surely be the successor. I'm willing to accept it. Qin Nan's expression remained the same. He ignored the crowd's gaze and went up to Xiao Yunjue and brought his fists together. As he thought, the people of the South Heaven Gate did not compete for the successor. They were heading straight for the Skyless Dojo instead. The 2 mysterious martial ancestor realm cultivators among the crowd glanced at Zhang Xianyun and the others. They halted their actions of exchanging the sky-severing dragon claws. As for Qin Nan and the others, they were completely ignored. If it were any other time, they would naturally pay attention to it. But now, the situation was completely different. The reason being that something even more shocking than the selection of the successor of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain was about to take place on the Skyless Dojo. The rules for selecting the successor are very simple. I will open up an independent space for you to fight. Before the battle, each of you is allowed to invite a cultivator below the 5th layer Martial Monarch realm to lend you a hand. Qin Nan can choose 3. This battle would last for the time it takes an incense stick to burn. If anyone was suppressed for more than 15 breaths of time, they would be considered to have lost the battle and would not be able to continue. The final victor would become the successor. The master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain paused for a brief moment before adding, "Of course, once it's done, you can still ascend the Skyless Dojo." This sentence was specifically directed at Qin Nan. He could even ask for the help of a great emperor in a direct battle? All the cultivators present were taken aback. Then, their expressions turned odd. They were just exclaiming how lucky Qin Nan was, but the situation had changed in an instant. Without a doubt, Xiao Yunjue and his crew would have a great advantage under the rules. As for Qin Nan, even though he could ask for their help, Qin Nan's cultivation was still too weak, thus it would be extremely difficult for him to defeat the trio. Haha, Cultivator Xiao, why don't I lend you a hand? Cultivator Wan, let me help you. Cultivator Meng. At that instant, Blood Rune burst out laughing. He stepped forward with Qilin Flame and Lei Haowen glanced at Xiao Yunjue and his crew. They initially thought they would not have a chance to harm Qin Nan before the selection of the successor came to an end. To their surprise, the chance had come so soon. That was great. Xiao Yunjue and his crew grinned. They clearly knew what Blood Rune and his crew were up to. If that was the case, they might as well work together to cripple Qin Nan before the selection of the successor. As for the successor, it would depend on their own capabilities. Hee hee, Qin Nan, I bet you didn't expect your retribution to come so soon, did you? Wan Fenghun glanced at Qin Nan and let out a hollow laugh. He then glanced at the crowd and yelled, Seniors, fellow cultivators, I'll fight this guy to the death. I hope you won't help him. Whoever helps him will be my enemy. And me. Martial Monarch Luoyin, Martial Monarch Juku, and the rest of the authorities stepped forward too. In addition to that, even though Xiao Yunjue, Meng Lang, Xie Shuiwen, Qilin Flame, and Lei Hao did not say a word, their gazes turned cold as they scanned the crowd. It was obvious what they were trying to say. They were trying to make sure that Qin Nan had no chance of winning. Qin Nan was done for. That's right, who would have thought he would offend so many authorities? No one would be willing to help him with such a great lineup. As the saying went, things would only go in the opposite direction when they reached an extreme. Qin Nan was too lucky, it was normal for him to be unlucky. The authorities wore a pitiful look seeing this. They were well aware of Qin Nan's past achievements. They did not expect him to fail to achieve the martial monarch realm after failing to achieve the martial monarch realm. It was such a pity that his chance to soar into the sky was going to be destroyed too. Qin Nan. Among the crowd, the Dragon Emperor, the nine-tailed monarch beast, and Ao Tsangtian were startled. However, they did not take a step forward, nor did they do anything. Were these guys ganging up to bully him? Sima Kong's face was filled with anger. Damn it, a bunch of mere martial monarchs dared to be so smug. Small Worm was so furious that its whiskers trembled. If it weren't for the fact that it had yet to recover, it would most likely go on a rampage and kill everyone. It didn't matter. Qin Nan shook his head at the two. His expression remained calm when he saw the disdain in the eyes of Xiao Yunjue, Meng Lang, Xie Shuiwen, and the others. A bunch of people ganging up on him? Xiao Yunjue, Meng Lang, Xie Shui, Wan Fenghun, and Blood Rune teaming up? All of these made his situation extremely dangerous. But, so what? If he couldn't even overcome such a small obstacle, how could he possibly achieve the martial monarch realm? Qin Nan, aren't you going to ask for help? The master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain calmly asked, as if he was unaware of the danger he was in. It's fine, I'll be on my own, Qin Nan said while shaking his head. He still managed to make it in time? The authorities and rogue cultivators nearby were astounded. Anyone could tell that Xiao Yunjue and the others had joined forces to set up an inescapable net. If Qin Nan continued to take part in the battle, he would only be digging his own grave. It was meaningless. Ha ha ha, as expected of friend Qin Nan, daring to accept the challenge by himself. If that's the case, let's see what your 7 martial trees are capable of. Xiao Yunjue, Meng Lang, Xie Shui, Wan Fenghun, and the others burst out laughing. Their eyes were filled with disdain. Very well, let's begin the succession battle. The master of the Tao Origin Heavenly Mountain raised his hand and was about to establish an independent space. However, before he could utter the word battle, an unexpected change took place. Wait, who said he was on his own? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.